Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting of the Sterling Heights City Council to order. If you would please stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for the invocation. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Dear God, please bless our elected officials. Grant them courage and wisdom to do what is right for all citizens. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Ms. Riska. Can we please have the roll call?
Mayor Taylor.
Here. Sorry.
Kowalski,
Here.
Kowalski,
Present.
Mr. Radke,
Present.
Mrs. Schmidt,
Present.
Mr. Yanas.
Here.
Mrs. Yarko.
Present.
Council, we need approval of the agenda.
Mr. Mayor,
Mrs. Koski.
move to approve the agenda. Support.
Been moved and supported. Is there any discussion? No discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. First item on our agenda tonight is a report from our city manager, Mark Vanderpool. Mr. Vanderpool.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to begin with a housekeeping item. Our offices will be closed on Veterans Day, which is Friday, November the 11th. The closures include City Hall, the library, Community Center, Senior Center, Nature Center, DPW, Recycling Center, and the 41A District Court. It will not affect the city's refuse schedule, so please take note of the closures. In addition, and most importantly, the annual Veterans Day ceremony will be held at 10 a.m. on Friday the 11th, and this year it'll be outside between City Hall and the Police Department. We'll be rededicating the city's war monument garden there, so it'll be a very special presentation, and we look forward to seeing the community come out and participate. Again, that's 11 a.m. on Friday, November the 11th. And also this year's Shine Day, that's the Sterling Heights Initiative for Neighborhood Excellence, Shine, will be November 12th, which is a Saturday, and we're going to be meeting at the First Church on DeQuinder Road at 9:30 a.m. So just by way of background, the Shine program was established many years ago to help individuals throughout the community who are unable to maintain their exterior of their homes due to either a mobility limitation, some financial hardship, or the like. And a couple times a year, our volunteer corps goes out and cleans up about 30 or so homes and helps seniors and others rake leaves, trim bushes, mow grass, paint sheds, and the like. And we've cleaned up hundreds of homes over the years through this very unique program. So we're always looking for volunteers. If you have kids looking for high school credits or community service credits, we'd love to have them participate, and adults alike. So again, the Shine Program Cleanup Day is Saturday, November 12th. So please see our website for more information. And Mayor and Council, as you know, we've been highlighting all the good work of our boards and commissions. We have hundreds of volunteers that help out on our boards and commissions, and they really are a contributing factor, major factor for the success story we have here in Sterling Heights. So this evening, we're going to be presenting and hearing from the Ethnic Community Committee and all the good work they're doing. And the city's Community Relations Director, Melanie Davis, will kick us off with this.
Thank you, Mark, and thank you to the mayor and members of council and Mr. Kajewski. We have tonight with us a couple of members in the audience from the Ethnic Community Committee. We have Chairperson Cosetta Elzeni, and we have Kalichi Anyagu, who he is a member of the group as well. As you know, that group has been around since 1990, and they do some really amazing things every year. Cosetta, the chairperson, has been a wonderful and active volunteer with the city on a number of different levels for many years, and I'm excited to bring her up to the podium. So if you'll welcome Cosetta to the podium, she's going to share with us all of the great things that the Ethnic Community Committee is doing for the city of Sterling Heights.
Thank you. Thank you, Melanie. I just want to also recognize also another member of our committee, Iqbal Singh. Okay, good evening, Mayor Taylor, members of the council, Mr. Vanderpool and Mr. Kazbuski. My name is Cosetta Elzeni, and I'm a current chairperson of the Ethnic Community Committee. I'm Albanian. Actually, I moved 29 years ago today to to this wonderful country, and I moved to City of Sterling Heights in 1995. I've been living in City of Sterling Heights since then. I have 3 children who all graduated. 2 of them graduated from Stevenson, the other one still going to school. Established by the City Council resolution in June of 1990, the 11-member of the Ethnic Community Committee serves as a forum for discussion, fact-finding, and recommendations regarding issues of concern to ethnic groups within the community and to aid in their interaction. The goals of our committee are first to enhance and facilitate a better understanding and awareness among diverse races and ethnic groups in the City of Sterling Heights, and second, to improve the climate of communication among all ages, races, through various activities and events that promote cultural diversity. The committee initiates programs to promote cities' rich diversity, such as sponsoring the annual culture exchange, the naturalization ceremony, participating in the annual Memorial Day Parade, and awarding annual diversity distinction awards. Our 2 major annual events, the Culture Exchange and the Diversity Award Dinner, are made possible through the donation and sponsorships that are secured through committee members and the City Community Relations Department. I'm happy to announce that this year we will be hosting our 25th Annual Culture Exchange to be held on Friday, February 24th at our community center. The committee would be open to any suggestions or any recommendation that council members may have to celebrate this milestone. As you all know, this is a very popular event and it is widely attended by members of the community, allowing people to enjoy a wide variety of ethnic, music, dance, educational, and culture display, as well as food samples. The committee recently hosted their 15th annual Diversity Distinction Awards dinner, honoring 3 individuals, 1 organization, and 2 local businesses for championing diversity in our community. Throughout the year, the committee members promote diversity at the other city events, such as the Memorial Day Parade, as well as the Police National Night Out. Each member of the ethnic committee takes pride in their ethnicity and share their heritage through display at the library as well as at community center. In the past couple of years, we have honored Black History Month, Filipino History Month, and celebrated the cultures of many countries such as Indonesia, Albania, Lebanon, and those are just to name few of them. The City of Sterling Heights Ethnic Community Committee, with final adoption by the City Sterling Heights City Council, has established 7 sister cities partnership. The first city is Tetovo from Republic of Macedonia, established in 1982, Legazpi City in Philippines in 1999, Casino City in Italy in 2006, Sarsagon City in Philippines 2007, St. Elia Fiumicipio, Italy 2010, Shenzhen, Albania 2013, and Jaffna, Sri Lanka 2016. A sister city relationship is a long-term partnership between 2 communities in both countries. The relationship is officially recognized after the highest elected or appointed official from both communities sign off on an agreement to become sister cities. Over the years, committee members have communicated with officials from our sister cities to promote educational and cultural awareness and assisting with the community projects when possible. Ethnic Community Committee member Willie De Chavez is very actively involved in helping the people of Sarsagon City, Philippines, coordinating efforts to provide food for underprivileged children. Our Ethnic Community Committee meets once a month and continues to discuss ways to promote cultural awareness and improve the relationship between all the ethnicities that call this wonderful city their home. Thank you for your time.
And Mayor and Council, obviously the Ethnic Community Committee is doing some great work and complementing the work that the Community Alliance is doing and also our African American Coalition. We're doing all that we can to continue to foster a very rich tradition of diversity in Sterling Heights. So congratulations. Thank you for your good work. And Mayor, I'd like to take just a couple minutes now to talk about an important historical factoid that occurred in Sterling Heights 60 years ago to the day. The city of Sterling Heights proved itself newsworthy for all the right reasons Sterling Heights was recognized by the local media for being an industrious and consequently desirable city for contract work opportunities. Again, on November 1st, 1962, 60 years to the date, the Ironwood Daily Globe reported that U.S. defense contracts worth $102 million were awarded to a Texas firm for work to be done at the former Chrysler missile plant in what was then Sterling Township, Michigan. As you know, we weren't quite a city then. Due to a robust, multifaceted economic development strategy over the years, Sterling Heights has maintained and expanded upon its ability to build and develop relationships and partnerships, resulting in massive investments in defense, automotive, and other areas, bringing substantial revenue and jobs to what would soon become one of the largest cities in the state. By way of example, the Sterling Heights Assembly Plant, known as SHAP, has been the beneficiary of billions of dollars in new investments over the past 10 years alone. Further acknowledging this trend of profitable collaboration, a contract was recently announced for General Dynamics Land Systems right here, headquartered in Sterling Heights, for almost $100 million. Equally impressive, the U.S. Marine Corps awarded BAE recently a contract to build multiple production-ready test vehicles for almost $90 million just this year. It's no wonder why Sterling Heights is home to 60,000 jobs. This impressive economic development track record is continuing this evening as we announce tonight the largest single investment in the city's history, equating to not millions, not hundreds of millions, but over $1 billion. And we're going to hear more about this later on the agenda this evening. But I thought this factoid in our city's history is really important considering this momentous occasion tonight. I wanted to thank our local historian, Michael Lombardini, who provides this historical information to us. He was a former historical commission member and is really vested in the city's history. And Mayor, lastly, at the conclusion of tonight's meeting, I'm requesting that the City Council convene a closed session pursuant to the Open Meetings Act to discuss negotiations with regard to collective bargaining. And that concludes my report this evening. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Vanderpool. I appreciate that historical tidbit, and there is going to be a big vote later on tonight, which we hope will even eclipse that. And Josetta, happy anniversary as an American, and happy birthday to my father today. So a lot going on November 1st. All Saints Day, right? So we hope it brings us luck. So thank you, Mr. Vanderpool. We'll move on to the next item on our agenda tonight, which is the consent agenda. Is there anyone in the audience who'd like to speak on any item on tonight's consent agenda? If not, council, we need a motion.
Mr. Mayor,
Mrs. Kosky.
move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Support.
It's been moved and supported with no discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next up is a consideration item, and this is to consider a memorandum of understanding between the City of Sterling Heights and Lakeside Out-of-the-Box Ventures, LLC, a Michigan limited liability company managed by Lionheart Capital. Technically, I guess it's OOTB, or maybe it is Out of the Box, for the proposed redevelopment of Lakeside Mall. We have a number of presentations tonight, and I hope you will find them all very interesting and informative. We'll move through them quickly, and they will hopefully answer a lot of questions that members of the public have. But to kick it off, I will turn it over to our city manager, Mark Vanderpool. Mr. Vanderpool.
Thank you very much, Mayor. The good news is I have the briefest comments of all the speakers tonight. So let me begin by saying the city team has been preparing for this moment for the past 7 years, knowing the decline of malls across the country was an irreversible trend, and that included trend for Sterling Heights Lakeside Mall. In order to reimagine Lakeside Mall, the city had to complete a comprehensive master plan process. The process was completed in 2015 and consisted of the following. Consistent with our Visioning 2030 process, numerous public forums were conducted seeking input and feedback and engagement regarding the future of Lakeside. At that time, when we were going through our Visioning 2030 process, one of the top concerns from the community is what is going to be the future of Lakeside Mall. We all saw the writing on the wall. The forums generated a great deal of interest and media coverage at that time. A number of consultants were used to help identify new and emerging trends in the retail sector and other mixed uses and mall redevelopments across the country. Administration studied best practices from around the country and incorporated the best practices into our master plan, sustainability plan for Reimagine Lakeside. City administration, city council, and members from the City Planning Commission learned firsthand by visiting Lakewood, Colorado, to learn how their declining mall was redeveloped into a vibrant town center, which will serve that community forevermore. The city then distributed the master plan to prospective developers and began a very collaborative process, knowing the previous owners had defaulted on their mortgage and new ownership was inevitable. Lionheart, a developer out of Miami, expressed great interest in the city's master plan and our vision for Lakeside, and shortly thereafter purchased the mall. The city's been working with the Lionheart team, who's with us this evening, over the past few years to prepare a plan that would transform the future of Lakeside Mall and result in, as I mentioned earlier, the city's largest single investment in our history. We're excited to begin this journey to prosperity for the Lakeside area, creating a revitalized area that truly will be everlasting. We'd like to begin the presentation this evening with remarks from Allison Greenfield, Principal and Chief Development Officer with Lionheart. And after Ms. Greenfield speaks, we'll then have a presentation from another Lionheart team member and then also a couple of presentations from our city team as well. So, Mayor, I'd like to introduce Allison Greenfield.
Ms. Greenfield.
Good evening, council members, mayor, city manager Vanderpool. Thanks for having us here. I know it's been a long road that we've been traveling to get to this, and we're very excited to show you our presentation and show the public our presentation of what the new Lakeside will look like. Just to give you a little background on Lionheart, we are a 30-year-old company, almost 30-year-old company, which was founded in New York City by my partner, Ophir Sternberg, and myself. And myself. We learned the real estate business in New York City doing adaptive reuse, entitlements, new construction, and the like. And about 15 years ago, we moved to Miami, where we have done quite large developments, mostly in the mixed-use, multifamily, and commercial sectors. About 7 years ago, right around the time that you were doing your master plan and doing all the public outreach for what would become Lakeside, we founded a subsidiary called Out of the Box Ventures, which was meant to look at what was happening in the retail sector and look for opportunities in ways that we could adaptively use or look for ways to sort of fix the problem that was starting to happen in the retail sector. We came across, obviously, Lakeside and your plans, and we started to talk to you at the same time as we thought about the potential purchase of the property. What was exciting to us at that time was that we saw a city that was forward-looking and a city that might have an interest in seeing something better than what was there now, which was a failing prospect. So in that vein, we came to you, and we hope what you see now will be as exciting as it is for us, to all the public. Oh, let me introduce, sorry, come on, please. This is our master architect for the concept design of the new Lakeside, James Meller, if I'm saying your last name right, from Callison RTKL in Los Angeles.
Good evening, everyone. Mayor Taylor, Mr. Vanderpool, council members, ladies and gentlemen. My name is James Meller. I'm the master architect for Lakeside. I haven't flown in from London. I've flown in from Los Angeles. That's where I head up a mixed-use design team who have been working on this tirelessly for the last couple of years, and I'm delighted to share what we've been working on. Sure. So I run a mixed-use design studio within Callison RTKL. Callison RTKL is an international design firm, and we specialize in complex mixed-use design projects, specifically renovating dead malls and repositioning them and understanding what makes them successful in today's market. When we look at Lakeside Mall today, it's really showing the sign of the times of what we're seeing across the country. And in its heyday, it was developed by the prolific developer Alfred Taubman, who grew up close by in Pontiac. And it really was a classic. And it was car-centric, it was internalized, it had great department stores. It really was the heart of the community, and so many memories have been formed there. But while expectations have evolved, this is a photograph from 1976 in the center court here. The value of community really remains the inspiration for everything that we're doing. So the values are still very, very key to our process of what's going to make Lakeside successful moving forward. So how do we create that soul of Sterling Heights and make it this local icon into a great neighborhood and a great community center? And so these are our governing values that we've been using throughout the design and planning process. So community, enhancing community vibrancy, balance, supporting community growth by offering diverse uses from recreation to offices to retail. And then adaptability. Is the plan robust? Is it flexible? Can it weather the times ahead as community needs change? So this is an aerial photograph of the new Lakeside. I'll just help you navigate a little bit here. So you have the lakes to the south. You have Hall Road to the top of the slide. Then you can see Lakeside Circle kind of putting its arms around the project. There are a couple of anchor boxes in the center. That's the JCPenney and the Macy's. We're going to keep that. But there are two primary arteries that you can see with the purple-lined tree streets. And this is our way of starting to break down that mall, create more of a suburban, urban environment. And I'm going to walk you through how the plan has come about piece by piece there. So starting with the heart, we want this to be a vibrant town center that's built on a foundation of flexibility and community growth, and a place where there's retail, there's shops, there's coffee bars, there's a place to work, a place to go to a hotel, there's community events, farmers markets, et cetera, et cetera. So it's really everything that people really want in today's world to do with their family and their friends, but breaking down that mall and starting to externalize some of those experiences. And then around the heart, it's really important that we create great streets, and not just big, long, great streets, but as you turn the corner, you see different personalities and different characters start to come about. So this diagram breaks down 4 different types of experiences that you'll have that circulate the heart of the project. So in gray here, if we look at Lakeside Lane, we like this to be a welcoming, active place where there's rideshare pickups, there's multi-level dining. In orange at the top here, we're calling this the urban junction. This is a place where it could be a slower street, a shared street, one that's curbless and flexible, and allows us to have different activities such as street fairs and places for mobile food. Convenience Street, that we see this as a place that can serve smaller local retailers with street parking where people can pop in and pop out and do their daily runs quickly and conveniently. And then finally, Garden Row, green at the bottom here. And that could be a convertible street, a street that could be closed down throughout the day when there's larger events going on or in summer evenings. So we've been looking at how these streets can become resilient in a post-COVID world. and yet still have great personality. The character of the town centre is a mixed blend between suburban meets urban. While we are not going to have an internalized mall anymore, we still recognize that there are very important and colder seasons ahead. And so with that, we still want to provide comfortable, walkable streets and shopping experiences. So naturally lit covered arcades, a great focus on indoor-outdoor activity. We recognize that a lot of people really still want to feel like they're outside even during the colder months. So we've been looking at good physical moves to allow it to feel cool in the summer, yet still feel warm, and we still can go out and dine and have experiences with our friends in the evenings. The streetscapes, there'll be a focus on juxtaposing the materials and the richness of the streetscape, so we'll be working on that as the design progresses. And this is a rendering of what we're calling the heart, so this would be the central park. So you can see here in the background, you can see a larger building, which would be the community center, which would frame the back of the park and actually spill out. And so you can have those indoor-outdoor activities that can spill out into the community green. And then in the foreground, you have smaller pavilions, which are, again, embracing that indoor-outdoor moments where they feel great during the summer, but also they can extend out and provide protection during the colder months. And then this is a place where all of these great new residential neighborhoods can come together, and you can have those active moments, those organized moments, or during the week, perhaps it's a little bit more passive and just a little bit more playful. Then as we branch out from what we're calling the heart here, as these streets branch out and connect into Lakeside Circle, we want these streets also to be great, and so they're walkable, they're bikeable, and they connect through the neighborhoods in a thoughtful and intuitive way. So I'll just walk you through some of the personalities of this. So if we look at the north to south streetscape, oops. So the north to south major arteries, these are the ones that most people would take off Hall Road and Lakeside Circle. We want these streets to feel urban, for them to feel active and porous and very pedestrian friendly, and you have a sense of activation when you drive into the project. And then a very different character on the east to west streetscape. We want these streets to feel more verdant, more lush, more landscaped, more suburban-like, and so they have a slightly slower pace to them and then a slightly softer feel. So they not only are creating characters and personalities, but they act as a great a natural integrated wayfinding means for people to find their way throughout the community and the neighborhoods. And this is a view from the heart looking down one of these new streets. And so you can see here is the community center is on the right. That's the two-story community center. And then on the left, we have offices and hotels and spill-out dining. And so this becomes a true mixed-use street. There's a lot of vibrancy here, a lot of different things coming in, people coming in who are locals. Maybe some people are out of town and staying or having an office meeting. So now it's attracting different types of people at different times of day. And that's really starting to create that sense of place and community. And then on the inside of Lakeside Circle, we have a new amenity called the Lyrical Loop, which is a big focus on health and wellness, which is very important today. And this would be a destination within itself. And it's a 1.5-mile loop of outdoor experiences that connect all the neighboring parks and connect all the different residential neighborhoods. So this is a place where you can cycle, take your dogs for a walk, work out in the mornings, go for winter runs, a place that you can just get away, but you're still within the experience of Lakeside. So just to summarize, we've looked at the past to inform the future. We recognize that not only studying what happens during the day, but also studying what happens during the night is equally important. that outdoor is a brand new focus for Lakeside rather than just everything indoor, and that seasonal activation and seasonal being comfortable throughout the seasons is extremely important. And that not only are we doing this for the local community, but there's a hope that it attracts people from a little bit outside of Sterling Heights as well, and becomes a real destination.
Oh.
Cue Luke. So I'll just go into a little bit more detail about the plan itself and then share some data with you. So this is the land use plan at the ground level. What you can see in the center here, if you look at the central green area, that's the Central Park. And then the red and the orange is new retail that is lining the streets, synergizing with the park. And then the two larger footprints, that's Macy's to the top and JCPenney to the right. So those two anchors would remain in this plan. The purple is the community center, and the blue and the yellow as the office and the hotel, respectively. And then, of course, branching out from the heart, you'll see the yellow-lined streets. Those are the residential-lined streets. In the bottom right, we have more of a community that's focused on senior with assisted living and over 55s and independent living. So when you have a project this large, it's really important that it all feels like there's a collection of experiences and neighborhoods within a project this large. So going to walk you through what we've started to look at in terms of creating identity and personality so people feel like they have their favorite place to belong within Lakeside. So starting with what we're calling the urban green experience, which is highlighted in green here. And this is an experience which is really more focused on maybe those people who have moved away from urban environments but don't want completely to let go of that, and they're looking for something a little bit more dense, perhaps, something that facilitates dynamic indoor and outdoor lifestyles. And so I think the look here would probably be, raw materials, refined materials contrasting one another with vibrant pops of color. And then on the other side, coming out of a neighborhood that is perhaps blending urban and suburban together, and so there's much more of a mix and has more of a focus on active outdoor lifestyles. And then the retreat, which is definitely more suburban as we get more south, closer to the water. So this neighborhood would feel more suburban, maybe a use of natural materials, playful topography in between the buildings. And then finally, the senior social. And I think it's worth saying that we'd be very sensitive to how the development, the neighborhood connects to the adjacent water features, lake, and looking at how those spaces can be more passive and more tranquil and slower perhaps and a little bit more quiet. So the palette here and the overall tonality, while can still be active, will definitely feel a little bit more contemplative. Okay, time for some numbers. Okay, so the site is approximately just shy of 110 acres. It's around 10 acres of open space and parks. And there's just shy of, or just slightly over 2,200 new multifamily units. The retail, I mentioned earlier that we're, in this particular plan, we're keeping the existing anchors of JCPenney's and Macy's, and then we're complementing that with 150,000 or just shy of new retail offerings. This slide covers 3 uses. So the community center is in purple at 20,000, the office at 70,800, and the hotel just shy of 50,000. Almost there. Senior housing, the independent living is around 400 units, and the assisted living is 200 units. Of course, parking, the wonderful topic of parking. So today, of course, you have large parking fields, and if you think about the distances people walk to get to the front door, especially if it's busy or when it was busy, now the parking is more purposeful and distributed evenly throughout the site, so it responds to where the density is. So it's predominantly surface street lined, and then we have 2 shared parking garages and 1 large surface 450 spaces in the shared parking garage, and then a couple of district parking garages. This is a summary of what I just presented. Thank you. That concludes the presentation.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Mayor, we'll now hear from our Economic Development Advisor, Luke Bonner, and our Chief Financial Officer, Jennifer Varney, to discuss the economic and financial impact to the city from this exciting project.
Thank you, Mr. Vanderpool. Good evening, Mayor Taylor, members of council. The hard part about following James is that my Michigan accent doesn't match up to his beautiful English accent. So want to go over a little bit of, again, kind of how we've got to tonight. Lakeside really started to see its deterioration in the early 2000s when the mall sold in 2003. We had hoped that with a new owner, that meant new investment. We didn't see that. Proactively in 2007, we created the Lakeside Special Assessment District to improve access, signage, and lighting, just to enhance some of the visitor experiences to the mall. This aerial is very telling. The mall has 8,000 parking spaces, plus or minus. It's at 1.5 million square feet, a lot of asphalt, a lot of concrete, very much a 70s suburban style development that quite frankly nobody would ever build today. In 2015, after seeing more of a decline in the shopping center industry in particular at Lakeside, we conducted the Lakeside Sustainability Master Plan with input from residents, businesses, and other stakeholders. It was really instrumental, I believe, in the conversations that we had with Lying Heart as they acquired the mall at the end of 2019. And that plan, really, just to put it into perspective, took a look at the land mass that was lakeside, 110 acres, and put that up against our neighboring downtown areas. This slide shows examples of Plymouth, Northville, Royal Oak, and Farmington. And really, these Main Street areas are dense from a property use standpoint, but they also are very much connected within the overall broader context of the community via sidewalks, streets, and overall municipal infrastructure. Unlike today, with Lakeside and other suburban malls, they generally exist as an island unto themselves. So, as a reminder, on the Lakeside Sustainability Plan, we had many guiding principles based on best practices, real estate trends, and really a shifting mindset of the future of suburban development. And these principles were vitally important for taking Lakeside as the old suburban shopping center and really truly integrating this property into the community. Some of these guidelines were walkability and streetscape experience, connectivity, green infrastructure, the redistribution of parking, the contextual design, meaning how do the uses flow together from a mixture of use standpoint, additional economic development opportunities, and really establishing a block structure, which is creating more streetscapes than what currently exist, and also creating recreational assets such as parks, water features, and other public areas. So no need to step back into what James had presented, but ultimately those designing guidelines, our sustainability plan, I think really made its way into a lot of the work that Lakeside put forward. The new plan is really centered on sustainability, both environmentally and economically. And history has shown that singular developments like malls have a definitive life cycle of 40 to 50 years, as we're now seeing. A redevelopment with a wide variety of uses creates diversification and extends the useful life significantly, in some cases indefinitely. Not only is the development more sustainable long-term due to the mix of uses, but it's also interconnected with recreational, open space, and pedestrian-oriented pathways. This includes the 10-foot wide Lyrical Loop that was discussed, and the Lyrical Loop then connects to sidewalks abutting new local road networks that will be constructed throughout the Lakeside City Center District. The Lyrical Loop then provides an opportunity for connections outside of the Lakeside area, including into a new proposed trail system within the ITC corridor, which is just west of Shaner, that would connect the Lakeside City Center across to Shaner to the new ITC corridor pathway down into the Dodge Park Trail system. We currently are planning to pay for all of the improvements at the ITC corridor with ARPA funds. And these focal points are consistent, as mentioned earlier, with the guiding principles set forth in the city's 2030 visioning plan. So the Urban Land Institute took on a research project in 2012 called the Shifting Suburbs. And the Urban Land Institute is one of the premier organizations that looks at real estate development trends globally. In 2012, their study focused on evolving suburbs and the challenges adapting for future real estate demands. What they noted in particular was compact development in the suburbs often requires extensive cross-jurisdictional infrastructure planning and coordination. And they go on to say, to ensure that today's suburbs become more compact, sustainable places for the future, stakeholders will need to work together to identify and implement innovative solutions to infrastructure coordination, funding, and finance challenges. During this process, our research not only consisted of the aforementioned sustainability study, it also included benchmarking similar projects nationally. As we set out to find an apples-to-apples comparison, we found the Villa Italia in Lakewood, Colorado. The similarities were striking. Lakewood's population is similar to ours. Its demographics and composition of its residents and household incomes were very similar to ours. And also similar was the perplexing question of what to do with a 1.5 million square foot dead mall that was built in 1966. One of the most important decisions that went into the redevelopment Villa Italia, is something that is under consideration tonight. And a quote from the City of Lakewood's finance director in a 2011 ULI forum was, "Building the right infrastructure has been a key consolidation. After clearing the site and conducting environmental remediation in 2001, Continuum Partners, who's the developer of that site, designed a new grid-based street system with a matrix of 22 streets scaled to the size of city blocks. The city assumed ownership of the streets after completion, and Belmar, which is the name of the development today, features wide sidewalks and narrow roads, encouraging walking and slowing traffic. Over-the-road cable lighting creates atmosphere and sense of intimacy." The city of Lakewood issued $95 million in bonds for the public infrastructure related to the Belmar development to be paid for via tax increment financing. The project started in 2004. It was roughly completed in 2016, 2017, but it's still being added onto. We visited in 2018 to get a look at it. There's a 22-block street grid, which I mentioned. There's over $750 million of development, 1,500 multifamily units and growing, and over 1 million square feet of office and retail. And here is just a quick look at what Belmar, which is now considered downtown Lakewood, looks like today. So what we propose for Lakeside City Center is taking the lead role in integrating the development into the community, supporting a long-term stable development and building city infrastructure that will enable a significant amount of investment, taxable value, job creation, and quality of life opportunities on a long-term scale. We propose doing this by what is known really as a national tool, a regularly used national tool, and definitely used quite often in the state of Michigan, and that's called tax increment financing. So we have two proposed uses that we have actually used a couple of different times here in the city. One is through a corridor improvement authority, which funds street, sidewalks, water, sewer, sanitary, and other utilities, public recreation and building, street lighting and landscaping, and also the use of the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority, which we've also used a number of times in the community, which will help with the demolition of existing structures and in any environmental cleanup that would have to take place. I'd now like to introduce Jennifer Varney, the city's finance director, to take a look at the tax and taxable value impacts of the project.
Thank you, Mr. Bonner. Good evening, Mayor, City Council, City Manager, and Mr. Koszubski. I just want to take a look at, so we can see how the Lakeside has evolved since 2007. This graph shows at its peak in 2007, Lakeside had a taxable value of over $36 million and brought in over $1.7 million annually to all the taxing jurisdictions. Since that peak, you can see from this graph that the taxable value has consistently declined from year to year. And now in 2022, the taxable value is only $11 million, which is a 70% decline from its peak in 2007, and now produces only $600,000 annually in tax revenue across all the jurisdictions. So the proposed new project will increase the taxable value of the mall site exponentially during the 12-year build-out period, increasing from its current value of $11 million to over $218 million in taxable value by 2039, which will bring a tremendous increase in property tax revenue to all taxing jurisdictions. So looking at the 20 years following the expiration of the TIF, you can see here that if there's no development, optimistically, property tax revenue would remain static, increasing, at the value of inflation. And over the 20-year period would provide about $25 million in tax revenue, which is about $1.2 million per year across all jurisdictions. And the city's share of that would be about $375,000 annually. Now, the planned development in the 20 years after the expiration of the TIF, we would see total revenue, tax revenue of $350 million or $17.5 million a year across all jurisdictions, and the city share of that would be about $5 million a year. So obviously a tremendous potential to increase our tax base from this this development, and it represents over a 1,200% increase in property tax revenue over that 20-year period. And now Mr. Bonner is going to talk about the other economic impacts of the development.
Yeah, thank you. So in addition to obviously tax and taxable value, just based on the regional location of Lakeside, there are other impacts that we could potentially expect. The first data point is a very conservative estimate of full-time employees at the project site when it's completed, and this would include both retail and office employees. That's 400, which again I think is very conservative, with average wages of $50,000 annually, and then that would be $20 million in annual wages. If we looked out over 20 years, that'd be a $400 million impact on wages alone from full-time employees there. We also used the economic impact calculator provided by the National Multifamily Housing Council. Since in the presentation, we did see potential for over 2,000 multifamily units. The calculator is based on inputs of the Detroit metro region and project data and statistics. So through that, it was estimated that resident spending would be approximately $360 million annually. There would be 5,884 construction jobs created. On a long-term basis, 43 jobs for renovation and repairs and ongoing maintenance to properties. And then the operations itself for the facilities would be another 37 jobs. Resident spending alone could have an indirect impact of another 1,700 jobs within the region. Therefore, this project could support, over 7,000 jobs, both temporary and long-term. So the last slide that I wanted to talk through, as we talked about tax increment financing tools that we've used here, the Corridor Improvement Authority, the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority. Our next step in the process is also to go through the city's PUD process for review. And then also incentives with the Michigan Economic Development Corporation that this project would be eligible for. So we're essentially looking at is all of 2023 being utilized to create the proper authorities for both the Corridor Improvement Authority and the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority. We're also looking at all of 2023 for the PUD application process and public hearings that go along with that. And also utilizing all of our time to meet and discuss with the state, apply for the programs that are applicable here as well. That concludes my presentation, and happy to answer any questions you may have.
And Mayor, just in conclusion, town centers and downtowns take decades, even centuries to build and evolve. Rarely does a community have the opportunity to have a town center designed and built over a 12-year period of time. Thanks to the collaboration between many stakeholders, including the community, the mayor, the city council, Lionheart, and our administrative team, we are prepared, and the city's chance for this unprecedented project has come. And we're happy to address any concerns or questions from the audience, Mayor, and of course from yourself and the city council. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Vanderpool. At this time, I will open it up to the audience. Is there anyone in the audience tonight who would like to speak on this item? Mr. Nelson, I'll start with you.
Ken Nelson, Fire Steel Drive, Sterling Heights. Well, what I say every time I get up here is transparency in the city did not get any better here. I don't care when we started this. This has been going on a long time. There has been no reports about this particular subject that went out to the public where they understand it. I get this, your backup material, okay? I've been trying for quite a long time to try to figure out why the city is going and trying to get rid of our suburbs, because that's what's happening here. your planning commission, when it looks at stuffing apartments into small areas, is trying to urbanize our city. We don't want that. The people don't want that. So you're going to have 7 people up here that are going to sign a memorandum of understanding, which, if you all understand that, you're doing real good. This is completely ridiculous. I sent you, all the council, I sent them today an article from June 30th, 2020, from the National Review. It's entitled, "Biden and the Dems are set to abolish the suburbs." And if you listen, just listen to that. If you listen to it, you will find our direction for housing to be completely spelled out. And this is from 2020 that it came out. It's completely spelled out. I've got a guy that talks on the planning commission. We have a guy that talks on the planning commission about the urbanization. Everything has to be, this is urban planning. This is what we did in 2030, visioning 2030. How many people that live in this neighborhood do you think understand and completely understood your Vision 2030? This is ridiculous. If you sign, if this memorandum of understanding without further community involvement is signed tonight, I vow right now that everybody that votes for this memorandum of understanding will be on a recall. Yeah, go ahead and laugh, Mr. Radke. You guys started this. So if anybody would like to get that article from National Review, please email me at kennelsonbroker@gmail.com. I'd be glad to provide it to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nelson. I'll take you next, sir.
Yeah, just one question.
Come on up to the podium, please, sir.
Alex Hubbard, simple owner of a store in Lakeside Mall, Sparkle Jewelry. What's going to happen with us? When is it going to be announced when demolition is going to start? Are we moving out next month, in a year, 2 years? Nobody addressed that. We hear numbers, millions. Beautiful. We are a small business. All we need to know, what's going to happen? Give us time. Uncertainty for us, we lose our business. Can anybody answer when we're going to be kicked out from our store? That's all we're asking. For 2 years, we've been asking the question. Neither the owner, neither the city was able to answer what's going to be happening. We know something was happening. Something was being cooked. Now we know it's going to be demolished. Great. It's a great project for the city. We love it. I love it. But as a business owner, I have the right, as I was paying my rent, to know a timing when we will be kicked out. What's going to be happening to our leases? I have a lease, it ends in 2028. Are they going to kick me out in a month, in a year, in 3 years? Any compensation? Somebody will come and tell me, read your lease. This lease was built based on 2028. It wasn't built on being the mall is going to be demolished and we're going to build something great. All I'm asking is some clarification to the whole tenant of Lakeside Mall. As much there, we were told there is at 55 occupancy by management. That means there is 55% occupancy of people require answers. We were never got those answers. Multiple times we said, announce it, and that's all we're asking. Can somebody address that for those small businesses? Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, sir. We have the owners here, and I'm certain we'll be able to talk to them, and somebody will reach out and get you some answers. Okay? Anyone else on this item? If not, council, we need a motion.
Mayor Taylor,
Mrs. Sarowski.
resolve to approve the memorandum of understanding between the City of Sterling Heights and Lakeside OOTB Ventures LLC and authorize the mayor and city clerk to sign it on behalf of the city.
Support. It's been moved and supported. Any discussion? Mrs. Sarowski.
Well, I'll take my first stab. I may want to come back after. I'm sure there are a lot of questions, and I'm going to follow Mrs. Ziarko's method on this. Since I'm first, yes. So I do have, so first to, I guess Allison, maybe if you could come up. You might be able to at least give me, or meet in the architect as well. James, this might be able to give me some of my questions. So, and it might also maybe answer the gentleman who just came up and asked. So, love the presentation was very helpful. We've had multiple presentations and multiple renderings, but the build schedule was really is kind of my first question. I know that Luke gave us most of 2023 is going to be getting the paperwork, the legalities, everything built up and ready to go. But what is your build schedule once that all gets done? I'm assuming 2024?
I'm going to bring in Colin because.
Colin, the one I didn't ask for, but that's great. I appreciate whoever's the best.
Good
at
evening,
this.
everyone.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for having me.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Build schedule, this is going to be a phased development
I would
over
expect
the
that.
next 12 years. So
Okay.
it is going to be a lengthy process. This is only the start of a conceptual site plan process, and then a lot of announcements and more negotiations will continue thereafter. So this is only the preliminary concept to start doing more due diligence work in collaboration with the city, our tenants, and the community. The whole PUD process that Luke mentioned for next year will be a lot of public input as well, and we're looking forward to that process. But we needed this to kind of trigger full announcements and full participation and really going out in the community, because we are community developers.
Very good.
After 2023, we're looking probably towards the end of 2024, beginning of 2025 to start any kind of demo activities. And then we think that we're projecting that the infrastructure and utility upgrades that are in dire need to happen will probably come online around the end of 2027, along with phase one as well. And then it's a 12-year process from there.
Okay, and what is phase one?
Phase one currently is some retail, the repositioning of some of the anchors that are staying, utility upgrades, temporary utilities, permanent utilities, public realm, all the city parks, Central Park. What else can I say?
And it's hard without an actual.
One senior, yeah, and then some of the multifamily and senior offerings as well.
Okay, very good. So that does help very much. Thank you for that.
Absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely.
I'm going to let the other council members ask some more questions and just give a couple comments of my own. So you can have a seat for right now. I do want to say a couple of things. So, and give my personal opinion right now. So redeveloping a dead mall is not a conspiracy to abolish suburbs. Truly not only in my opinion, it's a way to redevelop the same space that we have that has been laying dead or very, very minimally used. Certainly the parking lot is a dead space. So we've had many community forums on this for quite a few years. So I have to respectfully disagree with my friend and person who I do respect, but I think that this is not a conspiracy or a way to abolish the suburbs that I love to live in and that I really want to continue to help grow. But I do think this is a way to not only reimagine, but redevelop and get this community going and have a very wonderful, this plan has really developed from multiple things that we've seen. So I'm very excited about this, and I'm going to now let my colleagues ask some questions, and I am sure I will have more. Thank you.
All right, council, anyone else?
With the suburban comment, we are donating 30 acres of private land to kind of help augment the public park system.
And appreciate that because green space is extremely important to me as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Carby. Council, anyone else on this item? Nobody.
Oh,
Can you believe that? No, all right, well, let's vote.
They're jumping in. Don't you worry, honey.
I guess I'll
Mr.
go.
Yanis.
Go on.
my apologies. I've written down a bunch of notes and they're not in any specific order, so I apologize for
It's the same.
skipping back and forth. So maybe Mr. Meller, is it Meller? Is that right? Am I pronouncing it right? Yes, you are. Meller? I might be able to answer that. I'm just curious, you said your company has redeveloped dead malls before. Can you give me some examples of some of the malls that you've developed and what are their status now?
I wouldn't say that they fall purely under a dead mall, but if you, our portfolio across the country has done everything from looking at anchor stores, which are, which have become derelict, all the way through to entire wings of malls. That's usually how it works. But the most quintessential example that we have is one called Plantation Mall in Plantation, Florida, which was a complete renovation back in demolition and repurposing into a mixed-use town center, much like this. That would be our most relevant signature project.
So one?
No,
Plantation
no,
Mall.
the firm as a whole has done many, many, many. At the top of my head, and
Okay.
my responsibility, that was our most recent. In terms of the malls across the United States, Carlos Anartikel is the #1 retail architect in the world. And so we have many in our portfolio, and I'm happy to provide some precedents for you.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Sure.
Don't go away. We're talking about the over 2,000 residential units. Can you give us an idea of the size of those residential units?
Yeah, so the buildings are they're about 5 stories on average across, and we'll be looking for different articulations and ways to give each building different personalities and characters. But on average, they're around 5 stories, and where they have ground floor parking, surface parking, and then some partial parking under the building. But that's a prototype template to get to the density estimates that we're at today.
Yeah, and so you would guesstimate that these apartments would be anywhere from efficiencies to 3-bedroom, 2-bedroom at least?
Yes, I think that's fair to say.
Yeah,
Yes.
maybe up to 1,200, 1,300 square feet?
Yes, I mean,
Colin is just chomping at the bit. Look
Yeah.
at him go, man.
Feel free.
He's rocking
There we go.
back and forth.
Hi again. Well, I mean, the current market data that we have absorbed to date shows that there's efficiencies like around 650, 1-bedrooms like around 800, and 2-bedrooms at around 1,100, of which the 2-bedrooms, I would say it's 40% of the unit mix. 1-bedrooms are about 50%, and then the studios are only 10%. But keep in mind that this is going to be an evolving site plan. This is a neighborhood recreation or rebalancing. And so for the next 50 years, that's only the start. All of this that you see in front of you, this whole site plan, this is only the baseline start of a concept site plan and an area program just to test the fact that we can afford the infrastructure. From there, we're going to evolve. And we've already gotten so much response to the press release that we believe that the development community and the local development community will be looking at Lakeside to also come and join us. So the programs is going to evolve.
So, I mean, to your point, you just said this is current market data. We're talking 12 years. We don't know what the market's going to look like 10, 11, 12 years from now, right?
We have made projections.
We made projections.
Right. But it's constant rebalancing.
Right. I mean, this beautiful picture that you're showing us is a picture, right? It's not something set in stone.
It's not set in stone. It's extremely preliminary. It's a concept site plan. Negotiations will continue. The whole evolution of site planning will continue in conjunction with the community, yourself, the other stakeholders, the whole community at large. Retail leasing, all of that. It's going to evolve. It's going to be like living and breathing again.
Okay, well, it is going to evolve. So to a gentleman's point who spoke earlier, what we're seeing now might not necessarily be what we see at the end of this thing in some way, shape, or form. Some things may change. Well, for instance, let me give you a for instance. You state that there's about 70,000 square feet of office space to be leased. We have been telling people here in Sterling Heights on a number of different projects, nobody's building office space anymore, therefore we have to put up an apartment complex. Now, 70,000 square feet, that, maybe, Microsoft moves in, or maybe a hospital system moves in and leases the whole thing. Do you really think, in this day and age, and maybe 10 years down the road, especially with people working from home, and we've had the pandemic and so forth, are we really gonna have 70,000 square feet, or is at some point you're gonna change and go, we may need to make that residential or mercantile? It's a possibility, correct?
Anything is possible.
Anything is possible,
Force
yes.
majeure, hurricane, snowstorm, there's so many things that are possible, so it's.
Force majeure, I like that.
It's not necessarily
that's the way we
fair
talk.
to
No,
put
I
that
get
type
it.
of speculation on it.
I get it, but.
Based on the market study, there is demand for these uses currently.
I just hope you understand the point that, everyone's all excited about this because we have some really nice drawings. And we saw that video. I mean, it wasn't that long ago, they were drawing like cartoon people standing next to buildings. And now we have like a movie that shows, people going through this beautiful development. And it's very attractive. May not necessarily look like that by the time it's all over. I'll just go on. Yeah, project is a concept. So let's talk a little bit about building this thing, right? We heard a little bit about jobs, how many jobs are going to be created. How do you go about selecting a general contractor, or not a general contractor, but a construction management firm?
Those details are going to evolve, but, we have a very robust process. We try to pick the best of the best.
Okay.
And make sure that they're bonded and that they're fully experienced in all the different asset classes that we like to work with.
And so will there be, well, I can ask the question, will there be, because you can easily say yes, and it doesn't really matter if it's true or not. How many construction jobs will be created, and are there going to be Michigan construction jobs? Are people who work in the construction industry that live here in Sterling Heights, live here in Macomb County, are they going to be working on that project, or are we going to see people driving trucks with license plates from Kentucky and Alabama and Florida and Mississippi?
I think it's too early for us in the process to know exactly how to answer that, but our goal is, as community developers, to always look within and then look to supplement as needed.
So we're not sure. Okay, that's
It's early in the process, Commissioner.
That's fair. It's fair. It's early in the process.
But we do have our local contractor here with us now, if that helps.
Oh, you do?
Yes.
Okay. And what,
Soxy Construction.
and what part did they play?
Well, right now, they're doing a lot of heavy pre-construction work and estimating
Okay.
for all the designs that we've been putting forward.
Your construction manager?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, so
Yes.
they'll be contracting with the demolition. I think demolition will probably be the first group of people you hire, right? As well as the infrastructure.
A lot of pre-construction, pre-planning.
A lot of pre-construction,
Yes,
pre-planning.
A lot of
And-
construction sequencing, which they will help us with, and then the start of the demo, and then move into infrastructure improvements.
Okay, and they're a Michigan-based company?
Yes,
Yes,
Soxy
sir. Okay.
Construction.
Yes. You don't have to come if you don't want to, but
Come on
no.
up, Chuck.
I can tell you, so Saxy Construction is, we're out of Midtown in Detroit right now.
Okay.
We started out in Birmingham and those areas. We've been in southeast Michigan for 31 years. And we've built a reputation to make sure that we do it the right way. We actually also work all over the country as a national retail contractor. In every community we go into, we only put a supervisor in there, and then we hire everyone local. And so this would be a local job base that we've given all of our numbers, and everything has been based on people working in Michigan, out of southeast Michigan, all the people in this area. We're very instrumental when we worked on Partridge Creek as tenant coordinators for Taubman. We've been here for 31 years. We're not going anywhere.
Very good. Thank you very much.
You're
I do
welcome.
appreciate it. And I'm glad you did come up.
I'm glad you asked.
I'm glad I asked. I do want to, through the chair, to our finance team over here. I'm going to call on you both. So you stated in your presentation that right now taxable value of the property is $11 million. When this is all said and done, you estimate that the value, taxable value of the property is going to be $350 million, of which about $5 million will go to Sterling Heights. Is that correct?
Well, the taxable value was 350 million, so the taxes collected on that.
Yes.
So for 20 years, it was 350 million across all the taxing jurisdictions, so 17.5 million annually. And so about 5 million annually for Sterling Heights.
For 20 years, that's 20 years from now.
Yes.
I mean, it's obviously going to increase as the property.
Right, so the tax revenue of 350 million, so again, it's 20 years after the expiration of the tax increment financing, because that's when we start seeing the additional revenue.
I'm sorry, when was that again?
It'd be 25 years, so the proposed CIA district is 25 years, so 25 years after the CIA district is when we would start seeing additional tax revenue. We'll see our current rate the whole 25 years. It's the increment that goes back to fund the cities, the infrastructure, the roads, the water and sewer infrastructure that the city will eventually own is funded through the increased taxes over the 25 years for the CIA and the brownfield. But then after that, so then the next 20 years, that's what this is showing. So the 20 years after the expiration of the TIF, we would see a total of 350 million of property tax revenue. Again, that's for all jurisdictions, city, county, DIA, state, annually 17.5 million. City is about a third of what we collect, so that's about 5 million a year in additional city taxes after the expiration of the TIF.
So you've estimated, and this is not a guesstimate, I mean, this is somewhat scientific, right?
Yeah, it's an estimate based on the taxable value, the value of phasing in the construction. Our assessor was involved in valuing how we would assess the project, and it assumes, over the 20 years, an inflationary increase every year. I mean, so yeah, it's based on the current plan, the assessed value of the project after it's complete at the 12-year build out, and then going up from there.
Okay, and so have you estimated, once this, and we're assuming that all these numbers are based on the assumption that we're going to get what we're seeing here tonight, right? If something changes, then all the numbers change, correct? So has anybody estimated what this operation is going to cost the city?
We haven't done a detailed estimate on that, but I believe the $5 million will more than cover, the cost.
Now, that's a guesstimate. Okay, that's a guesstimate. Because we know that we're going to have deeded back to us anything that needs maintenance, anything that breaks, anything that needs to be repaired is going to be ours. We know that with several thousand people living there full-time, plus, several thousand more working there, visiting there, we're going to increase our 911 calls. That's a cost to the city. Is there going to be enough money in the CIA? And I'm assuming the CIA pays for all this, or does it come out of the general budget? So we gotta snowplow the lyrical loop. Who pays for that?
Eventually, that would come out of the general fund.
General fund.
Which is where this tax revenue will go.
The tax revenue will go to general fund. What's the CIA money? They're collecting those taxes for the CIA. We're just using the CIA money to pay back the bond? Is that it?
That is the first priority of the CIA revenue. We're projecting we'll have an extra about $11 million over the 25 years. in addition to what the bond payments would be, which would be split 50-50 between the city and Lionheart. So again, that's about, say, $5.5 million that we definitely could use for those type of expenses during the 25 years.
Okay. All right. You know, I won't belabor this any longer, Mr. Mayor. I think it's been very clear from day one. First of all, I want to thank Lionheart for making the investment in Sterling Heights. We really do. What, was I late?
Really?
Was I late with that? I should have.
I'll let you
Thank
finish.
you.
Irwin.
You should
Go
have
ahead.
led with
And,
that.
and I think, listen, and I'm as excited as anybody about this, but what we haven't talked about is the $45 million bond that the people of Sterling Heights are going to put up to basically help a private corporation maximize their profit. That's really what this is about. Now, I'm excited, I'm glad to see the people of Lakewood offered up $95 million if they want to make an investment here in Sterling Heights. I'd be happy to let Lakewood, Colorado bond this project out. But $45 million, we're acting as a Wall Street bank to make sure that this project goes forward and not getting, maybe Lionheart could find another company to help them with, to partner with or whatever. I'm not sure why, me as a taxpayer, even with all this guarantee that the money's going to be paid back and it's never going to cost me a penny, why are we helping fund a private enterprise? And then on top of that, we're going to be deeded back everything that needs repair, everything that needs maintenance. I mean, we're already paying, I think it was, $16,000 for every half mile of lawn that needs to be cut? And now we're taking this on? I can't support the people of Sterling Heights partnering in this way, taking out this bond, using the good faith and credit of the people of Sterling Heights to support a private corporation, maximize profits. And therefore, I may be the skunk at the party, but I'm going to vote no on this project. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Okay.
And I reserve a right to say something again.
Okay. All right. I just bought a new house, and it's a nice house. But you know what?
Very nice house.
It's got all this maintenance I got to do. So I think I'm just going to scrap the house, get rid of the house. And my truck out there is great, but it needs an oil change every couple months. It needs new tires. I think I'll just get rid of my truck. And these clothes, they got to go to the dry cleaner. What do I need clothes for? With all due respect, Councilman Yanez, what on earth are you talking about? This is a $1 billion investment into our community. This is taking a dying mall. This is taking 110 acres of the most underutilized property, perhaps in the entire state of Michigan, if not the Midwest, and proposing $1 billion of investment to radically transform it into the most unique shopping, dining, residential experience in Metro Detroit, outside of probably the city of Detroit. Let me talk about the bonding, because it'll come up and it'll be brought up, and the public deserves to know what's going on here. Of the $1 billion in investment, the owners of Lakeside approached us to talk about a partnership where they would be, as Colin said, donating back about 35 something acres of land back to the city. Again, I can't believe I keep hearing this, but is there anybody out there that would say, I don't want land, I don't want real property, because it's just too much to maintain? I mean, I don't know, I'll take as much as you'll give me. The city, what we're signing tonight is this memorandum of understanding with the folks at Lionheart. And it's giving them a number of guidelines and benchmarks that they have to meet. There's a number of things that have to happen over the next 12, 18, 24 months, depending on how the timeline goes, that show to us that they are going to develop this project. They've got to set up the TIF district. They've got to get the PUD finalized and get it in front of the city for approval. They've got to go through the brownfield redevelopment. I heard from the individual who drafted the transformational brownfield redevelopment and said, this is exactly what it was developed for. This is exactly what we drafted that legislation for. And this is, I think, going to be the third time it's ever been used in Michigan's history. And this is exactly what it is for. Then they have to get their financing. They have to show us they have their financing in order. Then they demolish the mall, they demolish the asphalt. And after all of that is done, and after they've spent tens and tens of millions of dollars on this project and some 5 or so years of their time, then the city goes out to bond. The city bonds, okay? And the city gets a $45 million bond to develop the public infrastructure, the roads that you saw on the screen here, the downtown artery that you saw, the tree-lined streets, the landscaping, the lyrical loop, right? The underground infrastructure, all that. And does the city maintain it? Yeah, but you know what? I don't hear anybody complaining when we were developing this city over the last 50 years that, well, aren't we going to have to hire new police officers? Fine. I mean, we're going to get $5 million, at the end of this project, we're going to have $5 million in additional tax revenue. What are we going to do? Just take the taxpayers' money and throw it into the bank and let's watch it grow? We're going to be providing services to new residents who are going to be moving in and new visitors who are coming to enjoy this incredible amenity that they've chosen to develop in Sterling Heights. Why? Because we have a track record that they can rely on. So let me get back to my point. So we're bonding for the $45 million, okay? Now, that money will be paid back out of the increased tax revenue generated directly from Lakeside Mall. So the general fund will not pay a dime of those taxes. So when you pay your taxes at your house, you are not going to be subsidizing this project 1 penny. Not a single penny of your tax dollars, if you are a resident or a business owner in Sterling Heights, unless you're inside Lakeside Mall, are going to be inside the Lakeside Mall circle, are going to be going towards paying that bond back. Now you might say, well, what if the TIF revenue doesn't quite cover the bond payment? Well, Lakeside has agreed, and that's what we're signing tonight, that there will be a special assessment district at Lakeside so that any shortfall in the TIF revenue generated will be covered by Lakeside and by the property inside Lakeside. And just as a third backstop, they've agreed to put up a letter of credit in 7 figures in order to ensure that not a penny from our general fund, not a penny from our taxpayers, the homeowners in Sterling Heights are going to go to fund this. So, Mr. Yanez, you know this. You've been told this how many times? You know this. We have negotiated an incredible deal protecting the taxpayers of the city of Sterling Heights. So the people who are going to pay for this are the people that are building in Lakeside, buying in Lakeside. And they're paying back this, and that's going to pay back the city's $45 million bond over the life of this project. We do not have to pay a dime of the $45 million until what year, Mrs. Varney?
2028.
2028. So there's going to be about 5 years of lead time in order for the TIF district to start generating positive cash flow before the bond payments even need to be made. And again, the bond payments come entirely from within the Lakeside project. So the way it works, for those who aren't familiar, is as the tax revenue will increase because they're going to be building and building and building. They're going to be at the end of this project, we anticipate that the total value of all the property in there will be around, what, $700 million, something like that, in 30 or so years?
Well, the taxable value we have at 218.
That's in 2039.
Yep.
So, okay, at the end of the project, I thought it got closer to around $350 million.
Yes.
And that's taxable value, by the way. That's not the assessed value. The assessed value is much higher. So we're thinking there's going to be, this project over time is going to be close to the investment that they put into it, right? So as the taxable value of this property goes up, the tax revenue goes up. Now, if we sit here and say, you know what, take your silly project and go back to Miami. We're happy with 1.5 million square feet of empty space at the mall. We're happy with 8,000 empty parking spaces. We're happy with $350,000 of measly property taxes. What are we thinking? I mean, honestly, what are we thinking? It's insulting to me to think that we can't be a partner in this. Lionheart sees an investment opportunity. And God bless, I hope they make a lot of money on it. But you know what? The beneficiaries of this project are the people in this room, the people, the 134,000 residents of this city, the 850,000 residents in Macomb County, and the 4.5 million people that live in Metro Detroit. This is an incredible, unique, dynamic project that is going to be something that I think this community is going to be known for years and years to come. And I'm frustrated, Henry, if you can't already
I'm as
sense.
equally frustrated, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Well, I don't understand. I really don't. With all due respect, I don't understand. You spent 6 years in the state legislature. If you didn't like this state legislation, why wouldn't you change it? If this is somehow a screw job to the taxpayers, why'd you allow it to remain in place for 6 years? This is an incredible project. The city's risk here is as low as we could possibly get it. The general fund is not going to be impacted by it, and I want to make that clear because I don't think that was very clear from your comments, Mr. Yanez. And you know, one final thing before I take a more positive tone. Mr. Nelson, with all due respect, I think I've been magnanimous, I think I've been kind, I think I've shown you the respect you deserve. I'm going to say it once and then I won't say it again. You ran against me for mayor in 2021. You had a slate of candidates who were all like-minded. You oppose everything like this that comes up here. And you have the audacity to claim that you have the city's backing behind you. Well, sir, why didn't they vote for you? Why didn't they vote for your slate of candidates? Not one of you came close to winning. So with all due respect, I think this city council has the support of the residents. And I think this city council, I'm proud to work with, is doing what is in the best interest of the residents. One final thing. I'm really, you know, as frustrated as I am about Mr. Yanez's comments, I am so excited about this project. I am so enthusiastic about what this is going to mean for the community. This is going to, I just think, be an incredible gathering place. It's going to allow the residents of our city to have something different and unique, a vibrant city center feel for the next 50-plus years. And I just can't wait for it to become a reality. We have worked incredibly hard. When we talk about 7 years ago, Mark and I drove to Chicago and we pitched this project to General Growth Partners, and you know, they didn't see the vision the same way that we did, and they let the property get away from them. And I think that Lionheart's going to be the main benefactor of that. That this is a partnership that I'm excited about, that I think, again, is just incredible for the entire community. $1 billion mixed-use development in Macomb County is unprecedented. It is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and I know certainly I'm voting yes and excited about working with you guys, Alice and Colin, your whole team. James, the presentation was incredible. It's beautiful. I mean, it's hard to imagine that in the heart of the city of Sterling Heights. But what's not to love about it? Okay, who's next?
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Radke.
that's a hard act to follow. I feel like I'm on trial right now.
That's not you.
I have to echo some of the mayor's remarks. You know, there are so many communities who are fighting amongst themselves to try to create, you know, Sterling Heights started as a suburban bedroom community. We're much more than that now. And we see it every day. We had a presentation earlier by our Ethnic Community Committee. You see the people moving here and the energy that comes along with them. And at the end of the day, markets determine what's going to be built at Lakeside. You know, we had people come up here and say, we're trying to destroy the suburbs. That's so laughable. We're trying to remake the suburbs, like every city gets remade throughout its history. You know, I went to the London School of Economics. I lived on the Strand. You have old and new side by side, old buildings and new buildings. You know, if someone just said stop in 1600, you wouldn't have the city of London as it is now. Sterling Heights 50 years from now is not going to be the Sterling Heights from 50 years ago. Cities transform, they grow, and if they don't grow, they die. It's pretty clear. You know, and we have just an immense chance here with the 110 acres, about 110 acres, of Lakeside Mall. You know, when I was a kid, Lakeside was the economic engine of this entire region. I mean, you go to the arcade there, Tilt, you eat there with your family, you shop there. I have a lot of friends who still have stores there. You know, they are trying to scratch out what everyone's trying to scratch out. My grandfather came from Italy. He wanted to create a business, and I can respect that. But at the end of the day, right now, Lakeside is not what it used to be. If you go there on a regular day, like I just went just recently, you have a mile of parking that isn't used. You have about 50% capacity at the mall. But we all know that malls are dying. It's not because we're pushing it off the cliff. Malls are dying because people's shopping habits are changing. And where people want to live, that's changing too. So I think the markets are going to determine this project, but I see a market here in Sterling Heights for people who might want to have a more urban or even more urban suburban setup. You can walk more. You don't have to drive all the time. People are still going to own cars. You have Shana Road to the left. You have M59 just north. People are going to have to walk around. But maybe if I wanted to live here, maybe I don't have to take a car every single place I go. Maybe I can walk to a coffee shop or walk to a bookstore. Now, maybe I still got to drive in my car to, say, Auburn Hills for Chrysler or whatever they're calling it now, Stellantis. But maybe I can do some of my other stuff right here. And we've done tremendous surveys. I know that Outside the Box and Lionheart have done tremendous surveys to try to understand where people want to live, the amenities they want around them, how they want to structure it. And I really do believe if they build it, people will come. Now, I have some quibbles with this project. Don't let the little things that I care about distract from the fact that we are talking about a $1 billion investment right here in Macomb County. I mean, I think about the city of Warren just south of us. They've talked about creating a town center for years, and it can't get off the ground. And here we are with the plan, and yes, like Councilman Yanez said, plans are subject to change, even over 12 years. You know, when I first got elected, that was right before we went out to Lakewood, Colorado. I got to view the project there, and even they said the project changed. They said they were building denser than they first expected because when they were building it in phases, people were moving in and asking for different types of properties. And I fully expect that to be realized at Lakeside. I actually think you can go even more dense. I expect there to be more retail. You know, retail kind of got killed by the pandemic, but I think we're coming to a different area. So I am all about mixed use, and I hope that you really do facilitate mixed use and pedestrianization throughout this project, because then it could be the showpiece for the rest of the things we're working on in the city. North Van Dyke, pedestrianization, protecting people from cars, because at the end of the day, that's what this project is about. You know, I remember when I went to Lakewood and I talked with some people there, and they were telling me what the values were of the condos. Now, you have a lot of apartments in your project. I hope that some of them are going to be turned into condos. People can buy and live there. I fully expect that to be the case, but, you know, like you said, we have to get there to the market to see what it's going to determine. But they told me that the prices of the condos had increased about fivefold over the course of the project, because people want to live where they can walk. People want to live where they can work. People want to live where they can get around. So I'm hopeful for this. I mean, as the mayor said, if we let this get away from us, I think it's a tremendous miscalculation. Through the chair to Mr. Koszubski, and the mayor touched upon this, but we have tremendous protection written into this agreement. I mean, the first thing people say when you're going to float a bond is, what about Highland Park and their movie, Allen Park and their movie studio? You know, how are we protecting the taxpayers? And we have several things built in, like the mayor said, including I think it's $1 million line of credit, I believe, Mr. Koszubski, through the chair?
Mr. Koszubski.
Yes, actually, the agreement says it's at a number that the city finds and deems appropriate, so that could adjust if we needed to.
Now, on top of that, we are going to create a special assessment district that can immediately assess the properties for any outstanding costs, so the city taxpayers are protected. Is that correct, Mr. Koszubski?
Mr. Koszubski.
Absolutely, that was part of the plan.
You know, I kind of take it, every subdivision built in the city, if it doesn't create private roads, deeds back their roads and infrastructure to the city. We sit up here and we voted, I can't tell you how many times, to accept this road at this name, to accept this project or this thing back to the city. So I think it's kind of being a little bit tricky to say that, well, they're going to create all these roads, which are going to be city roads, they're not going to be private, but we shouldn't take care of them. These people are going to be our citizens. We're going to have to give them police protection. We're going to have to give them fire protection. We're going to have to plow the streets, I assume, like we plow anything else. But at the same time, they're going to provide us tremendous value. We're going to have new communities moving in. We're going to have their dollars that follow them. They're going to be buying in our stores, sending their kids to our schools, I hope participating in our civic life, which is what gives us our diversity here in Sterling Heights. So I see a lot of pluses. Now, through the chair to Mr. Bonner, I know we talked about the different tax increment financing that's available, different products that are available, but one thing I've been thinking about quite a bit is I believe the state legislature several years ago passed a large development credit for things like the Hudson project downtown.
Mr. Bonner?
And would this project possibly qualify for that type of credit to even go above and beyond to help us build this project out?
Correct. That's the transformational brownfield legislation that the mayor alluded to earlier. The signatory project on that was the Hudson Block redevelopment downtown. When that legislation was actually being crafted, representatives from Bedrock actually reached out to the city of Sterling Heights to look at other projects beyond just the city that may benefit from that kind of incentive down the road. And we were very clear at the time that Lakeside at some point in the future would probably be redeveloped, and that certainly would be an incentive that we would want to take advantage of. In fact, we've had communications back with Bedrock via the mayor about, their delight to see this project announced because it was actually part of the legislation that was originally adopted. So there are other tools, that being a big one that we certainly are going to pursue in partnership with Lionheart for this project.
Excellent. I really do appreciate that. Just a couple of things I think about the project. I read all the message boards, and I think uniformly the residents of Sterling Heights are very excited about this project. But you always get those people with their little concerns. And they're not so little when a lot of people are saying them. So I just want to bring them to your attention. I'm sure you've thought about them. But first, people have mentioned to me, oh, this is going to create all this traffic at Lakeside. And I think that that's a very silly concern, because a fully built out retail mall has people coming and going all day long for commercial purposes. There is no way that residential neighborhoods will ever generate the amount of traffic that a commercial business will that is going all day long. Most residential neighborhoods in Sterling Heights are pretty quiet. And they're pretty quiet because there's a morning rush, an evening rush, and the rest of the time people are not really traveling the roads at the same time. So I think that one's kind of a false idea. But I assume, and through the chair to, I guess whoever from Lionheart wants to answer it, we're going to do traffic studies, and we're going to make sure the people of Sterling Heights aren't going to be inconvenienced by this project, correct?
Yes, correct. As part of the PRUD process, we will submit a traffic study, which we've already kind of started doing some preliminary takeoff with our civil engineer, our local civil engineer, and we're already projecting that we're half of what the mall used to generate.
Okay.
So
I fully expect
it's a 50% reduction.
I fully expected that. and I'll also go one further on what Mr. Yanez was talking. You know, I really do believe we need to have a local contractor, construction company to be the construction manager. And I think we need to create good union jobs right here in Sterling Heights. I'll put it right on the table. You know, these people live in Sterling Heights, they do their business in Sterling Heights, and we got to make sure that they're building the future of Sterling Heights. Because that way we're going to bring the entire community together. Mr. Yanez is right. If you have guys in here from Kentucky, from Mississippi, from Texas, who aren't paying taxes here, who are taking that money out of our community someplace else, you're going to generate a lot of ill will. I fully expect you not to do that. I just want to put it on the table. I'll go a step further and say, I want to make sure that our unions here in Sterling Heights remain strong and really participate in this project, because I know they'll love to build it. You're never going to get a better worker than a union worker. I'll stand by that every day. A couple of things that we've talked about in the past that I didn't see in this project, but I still would love to see come to fruition. You know, we have a wonderful city park just south of Lakeside, Island Park. And we have infrastructure we've put in. We have a right-of-way for a possible connection to Island Park, a bridge of some sort. I know, let's see if we can do it, right? But the residents would love a connection both to Island Park, because right now it's currently underutilized, and we're trying to find funding for the other entrance, which needs some upgrades. But I know the residents would really love that.
We would be in agreement.
Okay.
We just need to creatively find a solution
Of course.
to it, which Luke is planning on helping us with.
Okay, well, wonderful. I know that would be a high priority for us, as well as the connection to the ITC corridor, which you're not creating. It's going to be a pathway system that we're going to create throughout the city, but which will be a connection here, which will be a tremendous amenity for those at Lakeside. I guess the final thing I'll say is I watched the presentation with interest. I would say that I think that you're going to find takers for an urban-suburban concept. And I would urge you to focus more on the urban and not the suburban. Because we have plenty of houses, not available, but we have plenty of places to live in Sterling Heights that are suburban. This would really bring a different conception of what kind of living can happen in Sterling Heights. And I think you'll find buyers for that concept. Because right now, what I encounter, I'm 37, what I encounter are people who are moving out of Sterling Heights to find that type of housing. Well, the mayor's brother, for example, he moved to Royal Oak into a building like this, into an urban suburban concept, because he wants to be able to walk around a little bit more. And he's just one of many. People are going to Northville, they're going to Royal Oak, they're going elsewhere looking for this. If we can provide it to them right here, our residents that are leaving right now might say, well, maybe because we have the best fire department, the best police department in the state, maybe they'll decide, I want to live right here in Sterling Heights. And that really is the key. I want to create housing for every price point and every person who wants to live here. So I would also urge you to think about some kind of affordability. Because while this I know will be marketed toward people who have a lot, people who have a little bit, they still have to live and work here too, and they're going to be supporting these retail businesses. Now, Mr. Bonner had a slide that said $50,000 for retail, and if retail employees are making $50,000, good for them. But I know some of them are going to be making less. That's probably a median. Some of them are going to be making less than that. And it would be a real shame if people who want to, who work here are unable to live here. So I would say really think about your price points. Let's create a community for everyone who lives here. Because I really am excited about this. I guess I'm going to reserve the right to speak some more because I'm thinking about this whole thing. But I think that this concept could really propel Sterling Heights forward, not just in population, but in like excitement, that we are really creating something that no one else is doing here because we want to make sure that people can live here. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Radke. Anyone else?
Mayor Taylor.
Mrs. Schmidt.
I, like Mr. Yanez, have written notes all over the place, so I'm going to be bouncing around as well. Through the chair, first of all, to Mrs. Varney. So being our chief financial officer, tell me your feelings as far as risk in this project for our residents.
Ms. Varney.
With the, all of the backstops that Mr. Koszewski has put in the agreement that Lionheart has agreed to, very, very, very minimal. Again, the TIF revenue, which again, the TIF revenue is meant to finance infrastructure. Whether we borrow it or not, tax increment financing was set up by the state legislature to finance the infrastructure needed in these projects. It doesn't pay for building the apartments. It pays for the roads and the water and sewer lines. And in this particular case, because it's a 12-year build-out, the money is needed up front. We have to build the roads and the infrastructure first. And that's the reason to borrow the money. The projected TIF revenue will more than cover the bond payment. We are structuring the bond so that the first 4 years after we borrow the money, we don't have a payment. So the TIF revenue will start generating before there's a payment. If there is a shortfall in any year, for the first 5 years, Lionheart has agreed to write us a check for that shortfall. After that time, they have agreed to a special assessment district in which we would assess the shortfall to the properties inside Lakeside. Special assessments and special assessment districts attached to the property, not just the owner. So, again, if the property were to sell, we still have that right to special assess the new owners. So, I want to say, I could never say there is zero risk, but it is infinitesimal, in my opinion, with all of the safeguards. And then not even to mention the letter of credit, the $1 million letter of credit that would backstop all of those other. So with all of that, which I have, is, I believe, unheard of, I am very comfortable with this.
And can this in any way, shape, or form affect our bond rating?
When we went out to bond, most recently for Mound Road, we talked, they always ask, the bond agencies always ask about upcoming bond issuances, and this was disclosed. So they're already aware that this, could happen, so it will not have any detrimental effect on our rating.
Okay. Thank you. I guess through the chair to either Ms. Greenfield or Colin, whoever wants to answer this. So I guess it was you that when you were speaking, you said something about developers being interested in the project. So are you telling us that you may be selling parcels to other developers to develop?
We are master developers at the same as us wanting to do some of the project, but in terms of speed and making sure that we hit all of the tax revenue type milestones, it would make sense to partner with other developers. It's all about speed and accuracy and execution.
Okay, and I have to say, when I saw the rendering, the latest rendering, I should say, because we've seen multiple renderings over the years, I think it's too dense. That's my personal opinion. I think I absolutely would love to see condos, townhouses, townhomes. I think we need more of a mixed-use residential, variations of residential in there. And not excluding even some single-family or detached condos, something like that. That appeals to everyone. That can appeal to everyone in our community to want to live there. I may want to live in a single-family home, yet I want to live in that type of atmosphere, or a condo. I think the more people are invested in their community, which would be owners as opposed to renters, not that renters are bad and don't invest in their community, but I believe that homeowners are more invested than renters. And renters are wonderful in our community and contribute to our community and are involved in our community. But when you have skin in the game, it's just a little bit different. this just being the vision right now, I'm hoping that some of that, you can take that back and make some considerations there. And as far as, Ms. Greenfield, you were in the audience when this gentleman was speaking about his store. Could you please address what's going to happen with the
Absolutely.
current
I mean,
tenants?
As we said earlier, and as Colin has said numerous times, this is evolving and it's going to continue, and there's a lot of people that we need to speak with. I know that we have our mall management here. I'm pretty sure that you have spoken with a bunch of tenants, but nothing is happening here tomorrow. Before anything moves forward, there's many more steps that we will go over the next year, over the next 2 years. And of course, we'll be in touch with all our tenants, and we're hoping that some of the tenants will come back to the new Lakeside and be part of the new retail in the new Lakeside, because, as community developers and as developers that, that want to be part of this community, we've now known each other for a bunch of years. We want that kind of energy and that kind of passion, so we'll definitely be talking.
Which was going to be my next
Yeah.
statement, was hopefully you invite the current tenants to be part of
course.
the new development.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
hopefully in the development, the redevelopment process, we can locate them someplace temporarily, to keep you going too, to keep those tenants going.
And just a note on the earlier comment about homeownership and having condos and having different, as we evolve the plan, I mean, right now, in an abundance of caution and being very conservative, because we understand that, that we want to make sure that you as a city and we as a company can fulfill the obligations that we're talking about here today. And very much like you take your jobs very seriously, we take our jobs very seriously. We don't just think that we're here to make profit. Of course we are. We're in business to make profit, but we're also here to build communities and to leave something a little bit better than the way we found it when we came. So when it comes to homeownership, we can't right now, because of the way that market studies work and the way that we can underwrite all the economics of this situation right now, say that condominiums will work, because there are no condominiums. We can't look for a comparable market and say, we know that this will generate this. We know that multifamily, we know the retail, we know the office, we know how those things will generate income. We don't have comps. But I do believe, like you said, if we build it, people will want that. And I think as we evolve this plan and as people see what it's like to live here after phase one, or maybe even during phase one, we'll realize that there is a market and that people are comfortable, that financiers are comfortable in underwriting that kind of construction, and we'll be more than happy to do it. We've done condos a lot, and we've done rentals, we've done office, we've done all of those product types, and all of them work if there's a market for them. So building them isn't the issue, it's just making sure that everyone's comfortable with the bonding, with the financing, and all that.
Another big concern I have is your retail recruitment. When we went to Colorado, there were no shopping centers around that mall that was redeveloped. However, here, we have Target across the street, we have DSW across the street, I would hate to have those centers become empty because those stores want to move into this new development.
I think it's a very different product type, right? We're right-sizing, this retail center, let's call it. It's not going to be a mall anymore. It's going to be, and it's not going to be a strip mall. It's going to be a retail, it's going to be the heart. I mean, I don't know what else to talk, and I hear you talk about the ITC corridor, and I think about a heart transplant and how you start to connect all of these parts back to the body, and hopefully that heart is the beating center that radiates out. The closer you want to be to that action, you're here, and then as you radiate out, you kind of just get the blood flow, you get kind of a residual effect of being from close to the heart, but you're not the heart. I think that in that heart and right-sizing, you're talking about a very different kind of tenant. You're talking about a lot like what we have in Lakeside now, which is a smaller tenant. And so insofar as big retailers might be looking for smaller footprints, I don't know what the bigger retailers are going to do. But if you're a retailer like Target or Kmart or is
Not Kmart.
I'm like, oops, not that one. Here we go.
Not that one.
Macy's, actually interesting, Macy's and JCPenney's, who are those big footprints, but their basis is based on $1 from 1970 when it was built. So they're okay in those big centers, and they actually use them more as fulfillment centers than they do actually the square footage for shopping. It kind of augments their online sales, and that's what they've told us. But they're in a good position, and they want to be in the center of something new. So they're like, great, we'll stay. This is perfect for us. I think DSW, that kind of giant footprint, Walmart, those giant footprints are exactly what we're moving away from.
Okay.
So I don't see us cannibalizing that market. Yeah, these are more neighborhood, and I think also as we fill in and we might get even more retail along the streetscape, you know? It'll be, you know, the shoemaker and the dry cleaner and, you know, the things that happen when you can walk and you want to walk and you don't have to get in your car and you can just grab your bag and, you know, drop it on, you know, have a cup of coffee as you drop your dry cleaning, you know, more urban kind of lifestyle within that arena. So I can't foresee that.
Okay.
We're not planning on building anything big.
So,
inside.
so you're not planning on having any other big retailers come in? Just
No,
the Penny's and Macy's?
Yeah, and unless that big retailer decided to try like an urban footprint idea, you
Right,
know, like where
right,
they, you know, wanted a
right.
5,000 or 10, you know, 7,000 square foot space or something.
Okay, let me just look.
Fashion,
Retailers and food and beverage.
food and beverage, probably restaurants and.
Okay, let me look through my notes here real quick.
There you go, a jeweler, perfect.
A bakery, we need a little bakery.
Yep, absolutely.
Macomb County's big into bakeries.
Gluten-free.
So,
No Tim Hortons.
No more Tim
oh my gosh.
They're coming after you.
Just taking every shot.
No more Tim.
Funny enough, we're
I
doing
guess through the chair to Mr. Vanderpool, police and fire came up, and with, you know, potentially these 5-story apartment buildings, we're definitely going to need some new apparatus and some more staff. So what is our position there?
Mr. Vanderpool?
Thank you, Mayor. Councilwoman Schmidt. Thank you for the question. It's an obvious question. You know, what is the cost going to be for this development? And just to put it in some perspective, if we look at our costs right now across the city per home, for example, our city costs to provide services on average is about $1,300 per home. We have about 40,000 properties in the city. And that cost covers police protection, fire protection, snow plowing, library services, parks and recreation, and the like. If you were to extrapolate that to the number of multi-residential units here, which isn't really a fair extrapolation because it'd be more costly to provide services to single-family homes where you have more roadways, more sidewalk, more lineal footage of water and sewer, more connection, so on and so forth. But nevertheless, to be conservative, that would be about, it costs about $3.6 million a year to provide city services. Now, that's on the high side. We're going to collect, as you heard, about $5 million more a year. So that's going to be about a 300% increase of revenue, excess revenue, that the project will generate beyond our city costs to provide services. Again, that's police protection, fire protection, parks and recreation, and that includes all the apparatus that's required to provide those services, police cars, fire engines, parks and rec vehicles, and the like. So very conservatively, the revenue that's generated by this project not only covers the infrastructure costs, but it far in excess covers the cost to provide our municipal services. So at the end of the day, that's the net gain that Ms. Varney referred to for the city. There is a net gain at the end of the day for this project. Yes, it's years out, but that's our job as community leaders to look down the road 20, 40, 50 years and sowing the seeds now for that gain that's going to come. And then it'll be up to the City officials then to determine how do they use that excess revenue? Is it enhanced services and the like? So again, in conclusion, the revenue generated by this project is certainly sufficient to cover the costs to provide municipal services.
Okay, and Mr. Koszybski, you're not getting out of this either. So this is just the start of the process. Will this come back to council at any other point to approve plans or the like?
Mr. Koszybski.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Yes, actually, it'll come back multiple times. It'll be going through the planning commission, it'll come through city council. The PUD process alone will do that. There will be final site planning that will ultimately be done. And then those site plans that'll be developed over time. And once that final site plan is developed, that'll kick off the actual construction. And then if there's any modifications to the site plan that are deemed material, so if there's major changes or anything like that, it'll come back to city council for approval again. So there'll be multiple opportunities, multiple public hearings. It'll be a long process. This is not going to be done tomorrow.
And I'm not saying that this is what's going to happen, but what happens if they sell the property before the development?
Before? Well, if they sell it before, we won't be bonding, because they won't get into the milestones they need to get to before bonding would happen. But even if they were to sell the property after that point, the new owner is bound by the same site planning, the same special assessment districts, all of the backstops that we've put in place would continue on with the new owner.
Okay, thank you. I have nothing further, Mayor.
Thank you, Mrs. Schmidt. Anyone else? Mrs. Koski.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through the chair to Mrs. Barney, the $45 million that we would be bonding, what is the payback period?
Ms. Varney.
It's a 25-year bond.
Okay. So in 25 years, we should have that paid back. What does that do to our total debt ratio?
Ms. Varney.
I mean, I haven't calculated that, but we are well below our legal limit. So again, we did talk about this bond when we went out for our bonds last year. So the rating agents are well aware that it is coming, and we are well below our legal debt limit.
Well, that was my main concern is
we are well below, so this definitely will not get us near it.
we won't lose any points as far as our bond rating is concerned.
No, like I said, we always talk about future bondings, and they take that into consideration when they rate us. And just as a reminder, our last rating, we actually got a little bit of an upgrade from a stable outlook to a positive outlook. So again, even knowing that this bond, and at the time, again, there's still another tranche of bonding for Mound Road that was talked about at that time. So even knowing about those two additional future bonds, we were still upgraded from stable to positive outlook as a community.
Are you aware of any bonding that we would need to do in the near future?
Other than this, the only other one that is in the plan is the planned third. There was always going to be 3 tranches to the Mound Road, an additional $10 million. So that is all that's in the plans at the moment.
That you're aware of, okay. Through the chair to Mr. Collins.
Cowan.
Just wanted to change your name. To make sure that I understand this, I understand your concept, subject to change. Nice project, subject to the economy and what happens there, it could change. Do you plan on selling any portion of it, or is this something that you plan on building, collecting rent, and just moving forward at this point?
I think we're going to entertain all of the above. You know, we're looking at developing some, we're looking at joint venturing on some. If some interested parties want to purchase, we'll be having those conversations and seeing how that evolves.
Okay, so that is, again, just a vision. Right now, you don't know for sure exactly what you're going to do. How about Sears, the Sears property?
We're in those conversations with all the anchors. We've been doing that for the past 6 or 7 months, working with all the anchors,
Well,
stakeholders.
Sears sold, there are new owners, so you're working with them
The new owner.
to
Discuss
what?
their participation in the site plan with a upzoning or if they just want to remain as is.
Okay, so you don't know for sure what's going to go in that location?
This is a notional conceptual site plan that's the base case to support the TIF. And like we were saying earlier, we are continuing all the conversations with all of the owners.
So right now, Sears is going to be what? According to your plan?
Right
to
now,
your vision?
yes, yeah, there's 3 uses that's proposed on it. If we want to make a shift to a different location, that's highly possible as well, but it should still be in the project. It's still going to be a use.
Okay. If you have no one that wants to partner with you as far as any of the residential units, those are all going to be rental properties then? Anything that you continue to own will be rental properties?
As we have said earlier, just to be consistent with the message, right now, based on the market studies and all the climate issues, meaning the business climate issues, we are proposing a base case of rental product right now because that's what the market can support, just like how Ms. Greenfield had mentioned earlier.
What do you project?
From an
as-
underwriting standpoint,
What do you project as your profit?
we are still working on that. We were waiting for this meeting to see if this is going to get approved, and then we will start to do those due diligence efforts.
What if we said no to the bonding?
I'm going to defer that to Ms. Greenfield.
Okay.
I'm not going to speak for our owner of the property.
I don't know, I guess we'd have to do those calculations. I don't think that the support, that there is enough profit to do what we're talking about if it's not a private-public partnership. It just probably wouldn't make sense, so I don't know what would happen. I guess we would have to figure it out.
Would you be interested in selling off portions and bringing another developer in as a partner?
I don't know. Do you know somebody? I feel like this is a business conversation. I feel like we're negotiating at city council.
We do have developers that are very, very interested in the
Okay.
project.
Yes,
That's why I was
we've
asking.
actually have a lot of calls from local developers as well that are very interested in the project. But the underwriting, as all of these things, the underwriting has to make sense. As the bond, all of it has to make sense financially for everybody involved. I mean, it's a heavy lift, as you all know. We've been at this already for a few years. There's a lot that goes into making something like this successful. It doesn't just happen overnight, and it doesn't happen because somebody says they can do it. It has to go, you have to go through the fire from one side to the other. You have to compromise, and you have to collaborate with everybody. You have to collaborate with cities, you have to collaborate with tenants, you have to collaborate with construction professionals, and then you have to collaborate with the construction workers, which is its own beautiful experience. But it takes a lot to be able to get this done. So, as
Leverage is always great.
leverage is very important in the United States of America to get things done. That's why we have the #1 economy in the world, because we don't just hold it in our pockets and, hope that something happens tomorrow. We actually work together to make things better all the time.
You're a developer. Your job is redevelopment. That's what you do the best. What other municipalities, cities have bonded for you to put in the infrastructure? How many deals like this have you put together, and who are they?
I would say the city of Miami, it's a project called Midtown Miami, which we've used $120 million in bonds to redevelop a 57-acre brownfield site in the middle of Miami. It was generating like about $30,000 to $40,000 in taxes, and now it's generating, I think it was close to $4+ billion.
And what was their bonding again, please?
This was $120 million in TIF bonds.
In TIF bonds?
Yeah, the same mechanism, brownfield and TIF. That's called Midtown Miami.
Okay, now, we're proposing brownfield, CIA, and a number of other means.
Correct.
Plus 45 million bond for you.
Right, it's the
Separate
same
the
thing.
two with-
It was the same type of process, where it's bonded, and then we build the infrastructure, and then the private side came in and did the vertical investment.
Okay, and who else?
I would say that would be the only TIF deal, but we've done other type of repositioning of mall assets. But that's the only TIF one.
Okay, and you've had other I'm sorry, I didn't quite hear you. You have other municipalities have bonded for infrastructure to do a project for you.
Midtown Miami is the only tax increment financing type of project that we've done to date. The other type of projects were more like mall repositioning, and those were private, but those weren't as big as this. This is a completely different undertaking. And Midtown Miami was half the size of Lakeside. So the infrastructure requirement is so robust. I would also invite you to take a look back at, prior to us, your Capstone group out of University of Michigan. They also did a lot of feasibility analysis for you when you had, I think it was Wade Trim, to do some preliminary site planning. And all of their studies show that you couldn't support a lot of these uses without doing the infrastructure improvements subsidy. It just couldn't. So I would recommend maybe going back and looking at that as well. That was before we came along.
Okay, that's all the questions that I have.
Thank you.
Just one other thing. You project that you would start this project in 2027?
No. We would start it towards probably around Q4 2024 or early 2025 to start with the demolition, mobilization of the demolition, and prepping the site and starting all the infrastructure and utilities. And by the end of 2027, complete all of the infrastructure, all of it, in addition to phase one, which is some multifamily, some senior housing, and some retail.
And you would not need our money until 2028?
No, that would be probably mid-2024 to start the demolition, the brownfield cleanup, and then the execution of the utilities and infrastructure.
Okay.
But we were going to be fronting a lot of that soft costs, so we will need reimbursement of that by mid-2024.
I see. That's all. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Mrs. Schmidt, or I'm sorry, Mrs. Zarco.
Easy to confuse them.
You got 11 minutes.
11?
You don't have 11 minutes. You
No,
can
I
go
have
as long as
I
you want.
And not only that, is I feel like
Henry,
I'm an anchor on the bowling team
I'll be
here.
clear about something. Mr. Yanez isn't running the meeting.
That's okay. Like I said, I feel like I'm an
Take as
anchor on the
much
bowling team
time
here.
as you need.
All right, I'm going to go back, let's go back to what we're actually doing here tonight. Okay, we have been working on this project for 7 years, so if people say they didn't know about it, I don't know where they've been in the last 7 years, but we have been working on this for 7 years. So, I mean, we've had meetings, we've made it public. I can't even tell you the number of things that we have talked about that we've been very transparent with the residents that this is going to happen. Okay. First of all, we have a housing deficiency in Michigan. We do not have a deteriorating mall deficiency in Michigan. They're all over the place. This is an opportunity, and I know it's an opportunity, and it's very scary because we only have a chance to do this once, so we better do it right. And so if you think we're all asking a lot of questions, it's what we want to make sure that we are protecting our residents. So I'm going to start with money. The first thing, through the chair to Mrs. Varney, could you be very clear as to how much people will see on their tax bill to fund this?
Mrs. Varney, if you're not sure, I can tell you the answer is 0, but go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say $0.
Okay.
We all knew it was 0, but we need to hear it from you. So the people out there that are saying their taxes are going up, they are not going up. You're not going to pay anything for this. I think that we brought up the fact that you might be selling off portions of this, or you might be looking for other developers. At first, I was scared about that, because I'm thinking that we're going to put all this in place, and then you're going to sell it off using what we're doing as an asset for you selling it off. So then I did my research, and I found out that a project this big might need more people involved, because a project this big that is done by just one owner takes a lot of time. So by contacting other people that might be interested in this project, and I can tell you there are a lot out there, and they're just waiting for this vote tonight to start acting on what they want to do. So I think that is a good thing that you are also thinking in that direction, because it certainly does cut on the timeline for what we're all able to see as a result. So I'm kind of glad we brought that out, and we can understand that there is a benefit to this, that it isn't something negative. Okay, I'm going to agree with some of my colleagues that I do think this is a little dense, okay? But I know that during this process, you'll be doing housing studies, maybe conducted by the state, that will tell us whether you will be able to, because I don't see our population growth in the same ratio as what we're building there, is probably what I'm trying to say. So I think when you say there's moving parts to this, I think that there will be, because we're growing, but not at the rate of how many units we're putting in throughout the city, if that makes sense. Not that, you know, if the housing study proves that we can support it, then by all means. I still want to see, in the senior center especially, I'm live in a single family, ranch, and I could think about moving into, selling my home. I'm not going to sell my home and put the money in the bank. I want to be able to buy a condo. If that's what I'm going to downsize, I want to be able to purchase something. So when I look at the senior element of this, that's what I think of, is people will sell their homes to move into the senior portion of this development, but they want to own it. So that would be another thing. I'm really pushing for you to do the research on that as well. Recently, we've come up with a new idea throughout the state called pattern homes that you might have not heard before, but it's actually a concept from the early 1900s where a house maybe had 2 families in it. So it would be comparable duplex, quadplex, but the way they were built. I'm not sure that would fit in here, but I hope you do the research on that. Grateful that you're going to have different restaurants in there. I think that's what will draw people to visit, to shop, and to eat. I will say that back in, and I want to see a convention center. Or at least the research on a convention center. We have none in Macomb County. And if the center could facilitate something for 500 people, it doesn't mean that they all stay there, but it would be the ability to have a convention there with the rooms that convention would need for the different activities that they would have, whether it be workshops, seminars, that kind of thing. So, and there's nothing in Macomb County that, it would be brand new to Macomb County, and I think that that would be a great use. When we talk about what we're doing here, I took an environmental science class in 2003, so it's almost 20 years ago. Part of that class was sustainable living neighborhoods. This was about living, working, and entertaining yourself in the same area where you didn't have to, it was non-motorized living. This has that potential, but we've been trying to do this for over 20 years, and maybe it'll happen here. So I'm kind of excited about that. I do have notes all over the place. I understand, now that you're saying, like, it has moving parts, that this is just the concept. This is just putting the MOU into place. And I'm sure that after you get this vote tonight, things will start moving and we'll see more of what you're doing. And I really am sympathetic with the tenants that are there now that don't know what's going to happen. And I think that once you know what we're going to do, it'll be easier to tell you what's going to happen with your business, because you've probably been there for a good part of the entire history of the mall, because I've walked past there enough. I'd walk in there, and so I know that you are a good tenant and very faithful to that, to the mall. Just the speculation of this project has brought in national restaurants that their first presence in Michigan is in that M59 corridor between Shaner and Hayes. I mean, that's just the speculation of this happening. Right now, we know that Total Wine that moved into Toys R Us is probably the best performing store in the country right now. So what's happening is, what I see is the development around this mall, and people are taking advantage of this before the prices go up. I mean, so even in, so it's already shown, just the speculation alone is bringing about a positive reaction. Let's see. What we're voting on tonight is an agreement between the city and Out of the Box. But we also know that whoever comes into partnership with this, or if you sell it off, that agreement stays in place. So it's not like we're gonna be left holding the bag. We've done our due diligence as far as putting together this MOU to protect our residents, because that's our primary goal, is we know this is a good project, we're excited about it, but I want to make sure that the same thing doesn't happen to our residents that happened in Allen Park. I will say that we have local developers that regret not going and buying that mall to begin with, so they are out there waiting for you, or if they haven't called you already. I would like this development to be called something besides a CIA, so it's not confused with what we're doing on Van Dyke. I don't care what we call it, but it might be the same thing, but let's give it a different title.
Can we?
I don't think so.
Yeah, that's just like legal jargon, corridor improvement authority. We can call it whatever we want to.
Yeah,
Okay,
and call it something like Lakeside, whatever, I don't care.
we'll have a contest.
Yeah, we do, yeah. Yes, it's, yeah. The other thing is for the public hearings, will the public hearings be at this meeting, like a council meeting, or will there be other public meetings that will talk about Lakeside development only? Through the chair to whoever wants to answer me.
I can answer.
Mr. Bonner?
So each step requires a public hearing. So the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority will have a public hearing, and then the city council will hold a public hearing on the Brownfield plan. The Corridor Improvement Authority will have two public hearings, one for the creation of the district, one for approval of the plan. And the city council will have a public hearing on the creation of the district and approval of the plan. The PUD will have two public hearings, including Planning Commission and City Council. And then Lionheart is fairly committed to having a lot of public engagement throughout this process, not necessarily a formal ordinance required public hearing, but a lot of informal community discussions. I think they've been pretty committed to that throughout our conversations. So the idea is to get as much of this out in front of the public as possible.
Okay, thank you. In doing our research, this goes, like I said, 7 years ago, we were told that Lakeside's deterioration, even though we didn't think of it as that at the time, probably happened when some of the outlots were purchased by, like, Toys R Us. When you saw people, instead of moving into the mall, were moving out of the mall. We also learned that probably in our market in Southeast Michigan, there will be two malls that will survive, and one of them is Somerset, and the other one is,
Great Lakes?
yeah, no.
12 Oaks?
12 Oaks. 12 Oaks, I think, is the other one. So, and they will survive, but all of these other ones, we have to think about what we're going to do with this. It just can't be vacant. And if we have a chance to bring a billion-dollar project into the city without our residents having risk, I think we have to do it. This is something, we have 110 acres on one, prime spot on M59, and to be honest with you, we should be glad you're here because there are a lot of people that didn't even want to take this on. They had little or no interest. So I'm going to vote for this tonight. I had, like I said, until I got everything, straightened out, I had my fears. But I think that we need to do this. I think we need to do this. Are you going to court, or am I just, you going back to court, Mayor?
Look, we're going to have a second round, but we're going to keep it brief. Everybody has to keep it brief except for me, so. Anybody?
I'm not going to jump in quite yet.
Okay.
I might later.
Okay, anybody else? Mrs. Schmidt?
I just have one question through the chair to Mr. Koszybski. Refresh my memory, it's 45 million or up to 45 million?
Mr. Koszybski.
Bond.
If they meet the minimum TIF projections that are put into the MOU, then it's 45 million. If they come up short of that, city council can choose not to bond at all or do something less.
Okay, thank you. I have nothing further, Mayor.
Anyone else?
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Radke?
briefly. Just a couple points. I think we've really talked it. This is a great conversation we're having. But I just want to point out to my colleagues, people who are saying that it doesn't need to be dense, the housing density is what creates the retail environment, not the other way around. The retail doesn't create the housing. The retail will fail if it's not dense enough to support it. So you need to have housing density to create the retail, and I fully expect the retail will build out even stronger than their projections. These are just projections, because you will see the density there. But if they de-densify this project, you can kiss all the retail goodbye. You're gonna get none of it. It'll just be literally a suburb. It'll be just a subdivision. And some people might be okay with that. But it will, if we de-densify the project, it will be a complete failure. So let's just be very clear about that. The density creates the retail, not the other way around. Just also briefly, we talked about shared parking. We have a study coming out in several weeks, I want to say, that's going to hopefully encourage us to reduce our parking minimums. And I encourage you to reduce the parking minimums because, because we do not need tremendous amount of parking if people are going to say, well, they're going to need it. No, they're not, because people who live here are going to embrace this concept. You're not going to spend a great amount of money on a condo or an apartment. These are some of I think, the hottest item in the city. You're not going to spend that money and be like, but I need to have 4 cars on the street. You have to change your conception of how these people are going to interact with the built environment. It's not going to be the suburbs that we have right now. It's going to be a very different conception. And that's what I think about a lot. We get grief for the Gallo apartment building that we approved, across from this project on Shaner, just south of M59, in what was an empty parking lot. People say, it's insane, it's so big. If this gets built, that building will fit right in. It's going to be no different. And some people at home, they have to really bend their minds around that. What you see now is what won't exist in the future. And the future will be very different. It'll be bright, but it'll be different. And if we try to hold them to the standard that we have right now, not only will it fail and we'll waste a lot of money, but waste a lot of time. Because like Mrs. Zarko said, this is a one-shot deal. Either this works, or we're all going to have eggs on our faces. All of us and all of you too. So we need to make sure we get it right. And the other thing I took away from my trip to Lakewood, Colorado, was I remember talking with, I think it was Starwood Properties who were managing the mall, and about fill-in development that was happening. Your plan that you've presented has a lot of opportunity for fill-in development too. Parking lots that could become buildings, could become parking structures. There's different ways to organize the space. And I don't think this is the last step. This is the first step. And I think that we have to think as a city too about fill-in development and the rules for that and how we envision the space moving forward, because it's not just gonna be a building surrounded by cars. If this really does work, we're gonna have a living, breathing community heart, a center. And that's gonna change how we do. And then I also agree with Mrs. Koski in that the big box owners have to either come to an agreement or I guess just be left out. Because I know that in Lakewood, one big box owner refused to come to the table and they just got left out. They just built around them. And it was the ugliest building in Lakewood, Colorado, because they refused to engage with this process. So I would urge the owners who are there to engage in this process, collaboratively, because we want to see them succeed too. They were there first, they own the property. My friend Mario, I hope he really does get on board, because I agree with Mrs. Zarco. I would love to see a convention center if the market can support it. I would love to see a hotel. I'd love to see tall buildings if the market can support it. But at the end of the day, the market has to support it or we're gonna fail. So, that's all I have to say. I guess I went early second, but that's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, anyone else? All right, so just to put a cap on it, okay, Mr. Yanez, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry. So I'll make this quick. We obviously have 4 votes to pass this, and we should just go ahead and take the roll. I was going to say it's a $1 billion project. What's another $45 million? But Ms. Greenfield answered that question for me. She said without the bond, there wouldn't be enough profit to do the project. It's not the job of the taxpayers of the city to make sure that a private entity makes enough profit. And that's where the position I'm taking. And then on top of that, we've also heard that they're considering, or they will consider working with other developers to forward this project along. Well, then why aren't those other developers ponying up the money to do the infrastructure instead of the taxpayer city of Sterling Heights? I think Lionheart should do some out-of-the-box thinking when it comes to working with other people and paying for this. So, like I said, Mr. Mayor, you got 4 votes. I'm all set. Let's go.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Yanez. So just to sort of put a cap on this, I want to be clear about one thing in particular, which is this TIF district, which is, Colin put it well, saying, look, this project is subject to evolution over the coming years, and this is positioning us so that we can go and take the legal steps that are necessary to get the TIF district set up. That's really the first step in this process. And I don't really care if it would be Lionheart, or if it would be Lionheart and a local developer, or a consortium of local developers only, or Dan Gilbert, or Jeff Bezos. I don't care who it is coming here. They have this state law that allows them to get a TIF district and use the tax increment financing, use the tax revenue generated from this project to roll it back into the project. Now, that is going to happen 100% of the time to 100% of the developers that come to redevelop Lakeside Mall. It's not Lionheart. It's not specific to out-of-the-box ventures. Any developer that takes on this property would be entitled to it. It's an entitlement under the state law. Now, we can say, right, we could probably put up some roadblocks, so they'll just walk. And then we'll have a hulking 1.5 million square foot empty box right on the most valuable property in the city. So we don't want to do that, of course. So this is an entitlement, and it's going to generate, the TIF is going to generate something like $107 million, something like that, Ms. Varney, right?
Current projections are 96 million.
96 million, okay. So that's happening either way you slice it, whether we bond or not, right? But the project can't get off the ground without the bonding, right? The project gets off the ground with the bonding. The public money comes in to build the public infrastructure. And it's paid back out of that 96 million that they're gonna get anyways. So what am I missing here? You know, what am I missing? It seems to me very straightforward that this is a state law. Like, how many of the people out in the public, how many of you on your principal residence don't take the principal residence exemption? By show of hands. No hands went up, right? Because that is a state law that allows you to exempt 18 mills of property taxes on your Now, you could certainly pay that if you wanted. You could pay 100 mills if you wanted, but nobody does. Ms. Varney, how many people pay more property taxes than they owe to the city?
I'm not aware of any.
No, not a single one. Not a single one, right? We all do that, whether it's our businesses, whether it's our income taxes, whether it's our property taxes. How many of you all out there pay 8% sales tax by show of hands? Nope, none? Nah, me either. Like, we all minimize our taxes. Why are we acting as if this is some special sweetheart deal? And I'm gonna just say it one last time. The general fund, the taxpayers of the city of Sterling Heights are going to be spending $0 in year one, $0 in year two, $0 in year three, and in year 50, $0 towards this bond. There would be a cumulative tax payment of the taxpayers of Sterling Heights out of our general fund of $0. I mean, I don't know any other way to say it. These are entitlements that are there to encourage this sort of development. And it certainly needs it, because we know the path this mall is going down. And it kind of reminds me of the bridge over across the street. I know a lot of people have great memories of that bridge.
Dodge Park Bridge, okay.
At Dodge Park, right? It was a rickety old bridge. I mean, you couldn't, if you're riding your bike, you had to wait on this side to let people come back on that side. And we built a beautiful new bridge, right? Beautiful bridge. And there's traffic. I mean, it got, speaking of Mario, it got, millions of views on TikTok when they had this couple come through it. I've seen wedding pictures being taken there. New memories are being formed that are going to last for decades and decades and decades. And that's what I see happening at Lakeside. This reimagination of something that's been central to our community is now going to be the centerpiece of a revitalization of retail and mixed use, and give Macomb County the blueprint for what can happen in municipalities beyond. And I'm really excited about it. I can't wait to get going. So let's do it. Ms. Riska?
Mayor Taylor?
Yes.
Mr. Yanez?
No.
Mrs. Yarko?
Yes.
Mrs. Kosky?
No.
Mr. Radke?
Yes.
Mrs. Schmidt?
Yes.
Mrs. Saravsky?
Yes.
All right, motion carries 5-2. Congrats, guys. I'm looking forward to our partnership, and I know on behalf of the city administration, I can say we've really enjoyed the partnership we've had at this point, and we're going to continue to build on that, and can't wait to see what happens.
Well, we thank you for your consideration. Thanks you for having us here this evening.
Thank you. Okay, we will see you guys soon. Thank you all for being here and for your part in this presentation. It was very informative and helpful, and let's get to work. All right. So the next item on the agenda is going to be our communications from citizens. Pursuant to our council rules, we have to take up communications from citizens at 9:30 p.m. So we are going to move on to that item right now. And if there's anyone who'd like to speak, okay, Mr. Thiel, come on up.
Good evening. My name is Stephen Thiel. My address is on Calvin Street in Grosse Pointe Farms. I came here once before, but I was waiting after my house was raided by the Sterling Heights Police for the affidavit, which was suppressed for 56 days. So there was a little bit of delay since last time I was here.
Mr. Mayor, point of
Okay,
order.
Yep. Mr. Thiel, why don't we just take hold this time, give them about 10 or 15 seconds to clear out of the room. And Mr. Smith, you will be quiet from the audience, and you'll be respectful to the speaker, as we have been respectful to you. And we won't interrupt you if you come up and talk, okay? So just go ahead and have a seat, get comfortable, let Mr. Thiel make his presentation, okay?
When people respect the government, they'll sit to the.
No, I'm not gonna argue with you. You can either leave, or you can sit and be quiet. Thank you. Sir, why don't we have you take a seat too? Okay? All right, you can proceed.
Okay, so it's a bit of a complicated story, but I wanted to start with what I am not. I am not a defendant a person of interest or a suspect in any crime that the Sterling Heights Police are investigating. So, on my birthday this year, the Sterling Heights Police knocked my door down at 8:30 in the evening while I was at my birthday dinner, fortunately, with my wife and daughter. My daughter is 9 years old. The Sterling Heights Police were investigating crime, none of which occurred in the city of Sterling Heights. There's some kind of drug trafficking crimes the Sterling Heights Police were investigating, and they concluded that their suspect may have had evidence of drug trafficking at my home. There was absolutely no probable cause. Just because someone involved with drugs owns multiple homes, every single home is not raided just because that person owns it. There must be actual probable cause, and that did not exist for my home. And I know that that's going to play out in the court, but the concerns that I have are, first, that the warrant was not signed when they said it was. And that's really my primary concern, that warrants are being issued by the Sterling Heights Police Department without judicial review. And it's obvious based upon the timeline. So I'll let you guys finish.
No, go ahead.
Okay.
I mean, I've listened to you, Mr. Thiel. Please, continue.
Okay, so 11 detectives entered my house at 8:30 p.m. And they entered because my father-in-law is black. That's the bottom line. So they were at my house waiting, and they did not decide to enter until a black man entered my home and left. And within minutes after that, that's when they made the final decision to proceed with the raid. I suspect that they rubber stamped or somehow had the warrant issued without actually submitting it to Magistrate Piatek. Now, it just so happens that the 41A court administrator is a friend of mine. She was at my wedding, and I've known her for many years. And the first thing that she said to me when I called was that this is not possible. This timeline didn't actually happen. It took them 8 hours to get to make first entry, at which point they claimed that they found evidence linking it to my house. And then within 3 hours, they had 2 more search warrants signed, despite overwhelming evidence that their subject did not live at the house, did not control the residence, and didn't have anything there. So I'm asking for this city to request Attorney General investigation or a Michigan State Police investigation, because if 11 officers were involved in the search of my house, and they all lied about the extent of the search once they realized it was not the home of the subject, it's not possible to get a fair investigation from the Sterling Heights Police. So I'm requesting the city to request it from the Attorney General of Michigan State Police. Thank you.
Anyone else under communications from citizens? Mr. Nelson.
Somebody left their paperwork here. Ken Nelson, Fire Steel Drive, Sterling Heights. First thing I'm going to do is address you, Mayor Taylor. All right, that's a nice rant, and I love the way this all happens. It happens after somebody speaks, and then it's your turn. Okay, when is it ever going to be the people's turn to talk about that? Okay? It just doesn't happen. I guess I got to put it another way, and since I'm singling out people, Mr. Radke, are you a property taxpayer in the city, you personally? That's the question I have. I can't seem to find it in any city records, although you say you live here. This whole thing, and I guess I'll have to put it on the wedge, which is coming up next council meeting. Okay, it's a PUD. This whole thing was craziness to begin with. That memorandum of understanding that you guys are signing now, or that you've signed, apparently, it's already passed,
is nothing but a, what will the city do for us? I'm surprised to see that, that our attorneys wrote this.
We're off that topic. You can talk about anything else.
I will talk about this topic now. You brought it up after I spoke. I will bring it up
This is
right now.
You're breaking the council rules. We have council rules. I'm telling you respectfully, Mr. Nelson, follow the council rules.
Take some time off of this. Oh, you
Yeah,
did?
they paused it. You're willfully violating the council rules. You know you are.
Okay.
You like to put me in this position. Please stay on topic.
Okay, I will. This whole thing, whenever we have people that are trying to put up 3, 4, 5-story buildings in our city, is part of a PUD. They've already, just reading what they will do, what the city will do if they bring this to the city as a PUD, basically gives you no choice but to pass this. Goes through our process of the Planning Commission, goes through our process of the, any of this, and then it comes to the council. The council sits here, for the most part, on all of their decisions, and sits there and stares when people bring up questions. Stare, it's like you. You do that all the time. The particular project, and I'm going to talk about the wedge, our structure, our city road structure, will not take any more of this development. 6,000 new residents, and you're hoping that they all come from another place, maybe Warren, so that you'll be the third. The wedge does not belong here. It's interfering with the public. All you guys are doing is giving the public the perception that the only thing that's happening here is for you, period. You. That was a real nice rant. The last rant that I heard from you was, let's build all the apartments we can in this city. That was terrible. A lot of people remember that, especially the ones coming up for the wedge. Risk assessment. You know, we heard, what do you think, what do you think is the risk? This one in, who won the election? We all know that
All right, your
I
time
took
is up.
election day. I took election day.
Congratulations. Good for you. Thank you, Mr. Nelson. Would anyone like to be next? Mr. Smith?
Thank you, Mr. Taylor.
Well, here are, 2.5 hours into a meeting? You've really lost the whole concept of a city council meeting. The city council meeting, the purpose of it is for we, the people, to tell you how we want the city run, not for 2.5 hours of you people lecturing the property owners, the taxpayers, on how you know better than us and how you're going to run things. Treating treating people as if they're second-grade students and you're the teachers. Hearing Mrs. Zarko say, well, we got a shortage of convention centers when she led the charge on putting a moratorium on building new banquet halls because they interfered with hers. That's really something. We need more convention centers. Now Sterling Inn went broke, and we need more convention centers. Oh, the great junket to Lakewood, Colorado. Well, Moira and I went through Lakewood on the way back from a vacation, and what we saw was basically the same franchise stores as anybody else and some postage stamp apartments. And yeah, they were making money at it. They make money at Lakewood because the federal government put in a gigantic federal office building with 30,000 well-paid federal employees. Not because the city council of Lakewood was a genius, but because they got a bonanza of a big dump of federal money. Sterling Heights City Council and any other government is in the business of governing and maintaining orders, and not becoming an investor in business, not becoming a project manager, an investor, and basically the Federal Reserve, to become a player in the business instead of a regulator. This whole concept is absolutely ridiculous, and it's unacceptable. I'm glad that at least 2 council members saw the wisdom of it. I have to laugh at the wedge. Oh, here you're putting in a mile down the street a development 100 times bigger than the wedge. I hope the wedgers see this and see the error of their ways, and maybe mowing down a forest and jam-packing 172 units, 3 drive-throughs, and 6 retails into a residential neighborhood isn't such a hot idea when you're going to put something much, much bigger than that right in their lap. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Mr. Smith. Anybody else under communications from citizens? If not, we'll close that portion, and we'll move on back onto the main portion of our agenda. Next up is a consideration. This is to consider approval of a collective bargaining agreement and memorandum of understanding between the City of Sterling Heights and the Sterling Heights Police Command Officers Association for the period of July 1st, 2022 to June 30th, 2025. We have a presentation from our city manager, Mark Vanderpool. Mr. Vanderpool.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll breeze through this quickly because you've heard a lot of the CBAs over the last few months, and there really isn't much difference. So I'll highlight the few differences that there are in this one. It is a collective bargaining agreement between the Sterling Heights Police Command Officers and the city, which expired in June of 2022. The wage increases are the same as the others, 2% year 1, 2.5% in year 2.
Mr. Meitzner, can you please?
3%.
Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Vanderpool.
3% in year 3, which, as you know, in today's economy and inflation, those are reasonable wage increases. The healthcare plan is similar to the other CBAs, so I won't elaborate on that. One thing that's slightly different is command officers holding higher education degrees will receive an increase in the educational allowance. Command officers with an associate's degree will receive $250, and a bachelor's degree, $400, master's degree, $750, and those who have completed staff and command school will receive $1,000, all in the spirit of incentivizing higher education, which is obviously a benefit to employees and the city. The educational assistance program will include an increase, so the annual reimbursement for a bachelor's degree will be $3,000 and $4,000 for a master's degree. The clothing allowance is increasing by $250, and let's see, any other noteworthy? One item I did want to highlight is in an effort to stem losses associated with vehicular accidents, because the city is self-insured. The city is establishing an incentive program or a stipend for those who do not get in any accidents. So this is the carrot over the stick. So the first year stipend is $750. It'll increase to $1,000 the second year and $1,250 the third year, assuming the command officer is accident-free in those years. So again, the idea here is to reduce our accident rate, and if this works well, we intend to expand this to other groups as well. All other monetary benefits remain at the levels provided under the expiring CBA. And with the aforementioned in mind, I respectfully request the mayor and council approval of the new CBA and the MOU that is before you this evening. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Vanderpool. Anyone in the audience like to speak on this item? Not, council, we need a motion.
Mayor Taylor,
Mrs. Zarko.
resolve to approve the collective bargaining agreement and memorandum of understanding between the City of Sterling Heights and the Sterling Heights Police Command Officers Association for a period of July 1, 2022 to June 30th, 2025, and authorize the mayor and city clerk to sign all documents in conjunction with this approval.
Support. It's been moved and supported. Any discussion, Mrs. Zarko?
I think it was explained.
Council, I need Mr. Radke.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to commend the city administration for adding the educational requirements, not requirements, excuse me, the educational bonuses for officers who attain higher education. It's something that we talked about previously. I think it's going to benefit our police department in the long run to have officers who attain higher education. And I commend the command officers for working with us so that they get a little bit more for working harder for the residents. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Mr. Radke. Council, anyone else?
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Yanes.
through the chair to Mr. Vanderpool. Mr. Vanderpool, do we have an idea of how many avoidable accidents our police department gets into every year? I imagine it fluctuates, but how many avoidable accidents do we have?
Mr. Vanderpool?
Thank you, Mayor. Councilman Yanes, it's a very good question. We have about 200 vehicles in service at any given time across all of our departments. And in the police department, I would say the rate could be around 10%, but as you well know, being in the fire industry for so long, one accident can add up and 2 or 3 accidents can really add up. So it's not, it's not an alarming trend by any means. However, accidents in today's world are very expensive, and if we can avoid them, that's the whole idea here. So I would say in any given year, we may have 5 or 6 avoidable accidents with this group, but it's not out of line with other groups we're seeing in the city as well, or basically in society, but we want to do what we can to avoid them.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Vanderpool.
Anyone else? If not, just very briefly, I want to thank the command officers for their service to the city of Sterling Heights and the police department in general. I'm encouraged to see that we're continuing to increase funding for our police officers, continuing to give them the tools, the training, the technology that they need, and they well deserve it. We were recently again named as the safest big city in Michigan, and in no small part because of the work of our police department. So kudos to our police department. Job well done, and I know they're going to continue to do a great job. So happy to have this contract wrapped up. So with no further discussion, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item on our agenda tonight is another consideration, and this is to consider approval of a memorandum of understanding between the City of Sterling Heights and the Michigan Association of Public Employees Supervisory Employees Union. Presentation from our city manager, Mark Vanderpool. Mr. Vanderpool.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Periodically, new job classifications are required in the city, and this results in a memorandum of understanding that the city council has to approve. A departure of the former city planner created a vacancy in the job classification city planner / city development manager. So the city planner also served as a city development manager. The Human Resources Division has been actively recruiting 2 supervisory positions to build depth in our planning department and has identified a very strong candidate whose prior professional work experience, educational credentials, and interests are well suited to the role as assistant city planner, but are also very suitable for city development manager duties previously discharged by the former city planner. Based upon this fit, the Human Resources Division approached the union to negotiate a new job classification titled Assistant City Planner / City Development Manager. So with that in mind, the MOU was negotiated, and that's before you this evening. We really think that this will be highly advantageous for the planning department. Again, this classification and the individual brings not only strong planning background and experience, but also very strong experience in the area of economic development. By way of example, strong experience in business retention and business recruitment, something we desperately need. We do a very good job at it right now, but the job is just so overwhelming. And we do use very effectively a team approach led by our economic development manager, Luke Bonner. But this individual will bring some more horsepower and more leadership to that effort. So with all that in mind, I respectfully request that the mayor and city council approve the MOU that's before you this evening.
All right, thank you, Mr. Vanderpool. Anyone in the audience who'd like to speak on this item? Not. Council, we need a motion.
Mayor Taylor?
Mrs. Sarowski.
Resolved to approve the memorandum of understanding between the City of Sterling Heights and MAPE Supervisory Employees Union created creating the Assistant City Planner / City Development Manager job classification, and authorizing the mayor and city clerk to sign the it's getting late, the memorandum on behalf of the city.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Any discussion, Mrs. Sarowski?
Just briefly, I do, through the mayor to city manager, do we have an individual in mind yet? Or are we putting this out to interview?
Mr. Vanderpool?
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor Pro Tem Sarowski, we do have an individual in mind, and if City Council approves this, we will proceed with retaining that person as quickly as possible. We're right at the finish line here, but we need this job description and MOU approved.
Okay, very good. Well, then we will look forward to hearing who that is once this is hopefully approved. So I have no further questions. Thank you.
Council, anyone else?
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Radke?
Briefly, through the chair to Mr. Vanderpool. Looking through this, I just want to be very clear. The assistant city manager, will he have supervisory authority amongst the other two planners in the department? Or is he just an assistant to the city planner? I was just curious where he falls in the role there.
Mr. Vanderpool?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councilmember Radke. So it's Assistant City Planner, and just to be clear, there would be some supervisory.
But look, can I just, I think you said assistant city manager.
Oh,
You
I'm
meant
sorry.
I think what
Assistant
Mike
city
was
planner, we're
asking
getting
is,
tired,
this is
yeah.
assistant city planner, and
Yes.
what's his supervisory capacity going to be
apologize.
over the,
Right.
the department?
That's what I meant.
Yeah, and that's what I assumed you meant. So that's why,
Getting late.
I
getting late.
restated the position title. So yes, there would be some supervisory experience. So this would be equivalent on the planning side to a Planner 3. Right now, we have a Planner 1 and a Planner 2, but we don't have a Planner 3. And next highest would be the city planner. So in terms of the hierarchical structure, the Planner 3 would be just under the planner and above the Planner 1 and 2.
And they would have some supervisory authority over the other two
Yes,
planners?
and that would depend too on what exactly the city development director would assign to that position in terms of oversight, but yes.
Okay, well, I agree with Mayor Pro Tem Sarowski. One of the reasons that we are creating these new positions is because our former planner left, and we know that there's a lot of work to be done, and we want to make sure that we get that work done. So I look forward to hearing who this individual is. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Radke. Anyone else? No further discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We'll move on to reports from city administration. Anything tonight, Mr. Vanderpool?
Nothing further, Mayor.
Mr. Koszywski?
Yes, Mayor, we have one closed session item.
Thank you. Council, any reports or new business tonight? Mrs. Zarko?
Well, first of all, through the chair to Mr. Vanderpool and to Mr. Koszywski, if you could find out where I alone went and put a moratorium on banquet centers, I'd really appreciate that. And if you could do that research for me, because
Which one is your banquet center?
I don't even have, yeah, which one's my banquet center? That's what I need to know too. So, if we, I know and all the time I've been sitting here, we put a moratorium in
second.
something, but it wasn't banquet halls.
Is that yours, the one on Van Dyke, north of the roundabout?
I'm thinking they confuse me a lot with Carlos, but no relation, and actually it's two different families. So, no, I have no idea. And the other thing is, it is a courtesy that when you come and speak at the podium, that you do wait for an answer, but some people have a habit of coming, they speak, and they walk right out the door. And the person that complained that Lionheart didn't stick around did the exact same thing. That's all I'm saying. I'm not gonna sit here and, just be quiet anymore.
Thank you, Mrs. Zarko. Mrs. Sarowski?
And on that note, when are you ever quiet? In the best way possible, I say that. So, yeah, just very briefly, and Mayor Taylor did mention it, but I wanted to just reiterate that, yes, we were named the safest large city in the state of Michigan a couple of weeks ago, and I did want to commend all of our public safety who are involved in that, because I was very proud of that. I was driving on my way to Lansing to my high school reunion. I won't say what year, but it was, and I heard that on the radio, and I was so proud. So it was very good to hear. But I am really excited about the small development, and I do want to say that I know that there are some reservations. I do have reservations, and this is just the development stage and just the beginning stages of it. But I have a mug of the state of Michigan, and it has about 15 cities on it.
And Sterling Heights isn't.
And Sterling Heights is not on it.
You're right.
And I look at that mug, and it's a huge mug. It's my favorite winter mug because I can put hot chocolate in it, I can put soup in it, I can put whatever I want in it. Not putting a plant because I drink out of it. But it doesn't have anything about Sterling Heights, and it just grinds my gears because I want Sterling Heights to stand out. And I'm hoping, Royal Oak is on there. So I want Sterling Heights to stand out, and I don't want it to be just about a mall. A mall is not the reason to have Sterling Heights be a destination, but we do need to have something that really does help us stand out, and this is just maybe a springboard for it. But yes, I do want our family life and our lifestyle to be something, and I think it is important that we have diversity of lifestyles that can still be suburban and important. So I'm hoping that this is something that can get us going in that direction. And that's all I have, Mayor Taylor. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mrs. Sarowski. Mr. Radke?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Briefly, Councilman Zarco beat me to it, but I always find it fascinating when someone complains they don't know what's going on, and they do a drive-by at the meeting. They come late, they leave early, and they say their piece because they get on TV because they're always running for office. But then they don't stay to actually hear. But supposedly they represent the people and we don't, which is always fascinating to me. And what I heard today at this meeting was a lot of sour grapes. And it gets frustrating over time. I won't belabor this point, but I put myself before the voters of the city 3 times, and 3 times I've been elected, each time with more votes than the last time. And I think the people of Sterling Heights are excited about Lakeside, and they're excited about what we're doing. They're excited about the park. If we go back to the beginning, the idea that we were going to change Dodge Park almost tore the city apart. And now all I get are people saying, I come to your park from Chesterfield, from Clinton Township, from Birmingham. I come to your park, I bike it, I run around in it, I enjoy it. And we've created amenities, and our track record is strong. That when we say we're going to do something the right way, it gets built. And the people have resoundingly agreed with us. Come to Dodge Park on a Thursday, and you'll see they agree with us. So I find it frustrating here that somehow the people are going to say, but this one's too far. We have a track record. We're running on that track record. We're going to do the best we can for the people, and if someone can do it better, hire them. But I'm not going to stand here and be insulted by people who keep running and keep losing, and somehow they have the better of it than I do. More than that, there are facts here that I find just so frustrating. We have a housing shortage in this entire state. There's a housing shortage in the entire country. And people keep on screaming, why are you building things? Why are you building houses? Why are you building apartments? Why are you building condos? Because we have a housing shortage. That's why we're building it. That's why, not we, that's why developers are building it. And they'll continue to build it until it's not a money-making way for them to do business. They're not building it because of the goodness of their heart. They're building it because they make money doing it. So this idea that somehow someone who has no training in it, they know more than a developer who's done market studies, who's putting his own money on the line, is crazy. And to have them keep on saying it. It's the same thing about traffic. I hear about traffic on Hall Road, one of the largest stroads in the entire state, built to take as much traffic as we can throw at it. And somehow 600 units or 2,000 units, maybe 2,000 cars, or even 4,000 cars will just overwhelm this roadway that was built to be a freeway and take hundreds of thousands of people every way through our county every day. I think it just belies reality. That somehow these 600 cars are just gonna throw the whole thing off kilter and it's just gonna fall apart. And that's the most tired argument. Traffic, we don't need apartments. There aren't any empty ones. Go try to rent an apartment right now. You'll be on a waiting list. Anywhere in the metro area, there's none. So this idea that somehow we just got it good and we have to slam the door behind us and everyone else. My grandfather came here from Italy, and thank God he was able to buy a house in Sterling Heights, and we didn't slam the door on him, because I wouldn't be here right now. But we have this idea that somehow the city can never change. Well, I'm going to tell you, when I got elected, the average age in Sterling Heights was 37, and it's now 42. Our city is getting older. And that means we're going to be in trouble in a few years if it continues to age. We don't continue to add new residents. Because under the Headley Amendment and Proposal A, our tax base gets squeezed every year. We bring in less money, levying more mills. And there are other cities that have already confronted this demographic. They levy a heck of a lot more mills than we do, and they collect a lot less money in the process. So if we're not continuing to develop, then we are literally kissing our city goodbye. Well, we're gonna kiss goodbye our top of the line, ISO 2, one of the only in the state fire departments. We're gonna kiss goodbye our #1 in the state police department, because we're not going to be able to afford these things. Lakeside is just one example of us continuing to find ways to afford things. Until the state legislature changes the tax structure, which they've forced on us, they've essentially, with Proposal A and Headley, create a structural deficit that we have to meet every single year. We have to make do with less every single year. Until we get squeezed so much, the city breaks. That's literally what the process is. So I just think it's insane. You know, Mrs. Sarowski, you saying about your mug kind of made me think today. There's an article in the Atlantic about a crime that happened in Sterling Heights. I won't belabor it, a lottery scam. But the opening of the article says, this happened in Sterling Heights, a tiny suburb outside of Detroit. It's a tiny suburb. We're the fourth largest city in the state. But the national writer they brought in, that's how he referred to us. That's how he views us, because he doesn't understand us. And I think we need to continue to plant our flag and say, we can run with the big dogs. We have a beautiful city here. It's continuing to grow. Their investment in our city is a vote of confidence, because they wouldn't build it here if they thought it was going to fail. They wouldn't build it here if they thought it sucked. They're doing it because they want to have what we have. So with that, I want to say thank you to our police department for delivering yet again on the safest city ranking. Other people say they have a safe city. We have the safest. And I'm really proud of that. And I also want to thank everyone, yesterday was Halloween, who passed out candy, lit their porches. I had 60 little goblins come by my father's house where I passed out candy. But, you know, things like that are what make a community. So I want to thank the people at home for participating, because without that, we just become another place. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Radke. Anyone else? No? Going once, going twice? Okay. Well, I will say I'm encouraged about what's happening in Sterling Heights, and I think, you know, both Mrs. Sarowski and Mr. Radke touched on it, and you might have too, Ms. Zarko, I just didn't write it down, that I think Sterling Heights wants to take the position of leadership in Macomb County, that we are one of the largest cities in the state, one of the largest cities in Macomb County. We've got an incredible population of residents. We've got diversity, both in terms of our residents and our businesses. We've got small shops. We've got some of the largest companies in the world and everything in between. We have what I believe is the best park system in the state of Michigan. We have natural amenities that we're just starting to tap into, like the Clinton River. We have incredible school districts between Warren Consolidated and Utica Community Schools. We have affordable housing. And I know it doesn't always seem that way, but in the grand scheme of things, we have a pretty darn affordable community. For our size, for the safety that we have here for our residents, the incredible services that we get, I think we have something special. But we, I think, kind of suffer from being part of a Macomb County and Metro Detroit that's just a big sea of suburbia. And that's fine. And, you know, all due respect, Mr. Nelson, that's not going to change overnight. And even if I do believe that my children and younger generations are going to have different needs for housing than we have, and that my parents and older generations had, that I don't think they're going to want a 2,500 square foot house on a half an acre of property. I think they're going to want something more manageable. I think they're going to want to be more transient and have the ability to pick up and move more quickly. And so Sterling Heights is diversifying its housing stock as well. positioning ourselves for success for generations to come, decades to come. And I'm encouraged that, we had news reporters here. We've got the most exciting dynamic project in Macomb County's history starting to take shape here. And I think that this will help give Sterling Heights an identity so that people around the state and around the Midwest, when they hear Sterling Heights, I want them to think of something. I want them to feel the same way that the seven of us up here feel about the community and the city that we love. We know we've got hundreds of volunteers that we honor at volunteer banquets. They love the city. They give of their time and talents and energy to make the city better. We know we've got 600 or so dedicated staff here that love working for the city and put their heart and soul into the city. And we know that there are residents out there that feel the same way too. And we want to give that story. We want to give that to a broader audience and show all the great things, the businesses that we have here. And I think what we did tonight was taking a real huge step forward in cementing that identity and creating a legacy that will be around for 100 years or more. So I'm really excited about that. And with that being said, I would entertain a motion to adjourn into closed session.
So moved. Support.
It's been moved and supported. Ms. Riska, can we please have a roll call vote?
Mr. Yanas?
Yes.
Mrs. Yarko?
Yes.
Kowski?
Yes.
Mr. Radke?
Yes.
Yes.
Kowski?
Yes.
Mayor Taylor?
Yes, motion carries 7-0. We will adjourn into closed session. We will not be returning. A week from tonight is election night in Michigan and in the country. If you're not registered, get out to register and vote. If you haven't voted yet, you still have time. You can vote absentee, you can vote in the drop boxes, you can vote at the community center, and you can vote at your precinct on election day. Let your voice be heard. This meeting is adjourned.